Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
You're very welcome along to Saturday's Off the Ball. It's Eoin here with you right the way through until 6 o'clock this evening, and all the 3 o'clock games have now kicked off in the fourth round of the FA Cup and in the Championship and the Scottish Premiership. We'll keep you up to speed on everything that happens throughout the course of the afternoon here. If you're just joining us, you'd have missed that Derby County have beaten Accrington Stanley 1-0 away from home. So they're the first team after Manchester United, of course, to progress to the next round of the FA Cup. Shane is with us in studio. Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward have also popped in. How are you, lads?
Hi, Eoin. How are things?
Johnny, many people on Twitter would have seen last night that you made your first appearance at the RDS. How did you find that?
I was at the RDS 4 for a cup final.
For a rugby game, I should say, sorry.
Yeah.
This is the big king. It's a rugby breakthrough.
It's it was actually very enjoyable. Yeah, it was it was a bit of a non-entity of a game, but we'd very good tickets, so like you were quite close to the action, and it was I've rarely been to a rugby game at all, so I enjoyed it. I have to say, I thought it was it was a very exciting second half. Obviously, if you're a Leinster fan, I think you were there to see all these fringe players, because I didn't recognise most of them anyway. But the whole experience was pretty good. I like the RDS, I have to say. It seems a lot nicer now than it was the last time I was there anyway. And I think they're renovating it, but it was actually a very enjoyable place to watch a game.
And what's with your renewed interest in Leinster rugby?
I've just kind of gotten to know a few people from Rathgar who are into rugby.
How did that happen?
Just started dating a girl from Rathgar.
There you go.
So,
That's
all of a sudden, Johnny's stance on rugby has changed utterly.
Yeah.
I know. I remember last Paddy's Day going into a bar with him. I think it was Ireland England, was it? Or was there a big rugby game? And like we were like the whole bar was being quiet, sort of respect the kicker stuff. And me and Johnny were at the bar talking to me, going, "Oh, listen, this is a bit much, people. You need to."
Yeah.
And then you fast forward, whatever, 10 months, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah,
well, I don't want to be
how they look last night, it's a steady, like he was on air a couple of months ago and he said, I've suddenly started to see the attraction of rugby, and then we realised that things were serious in this point.
I'd be a social
he feels very uncomfortable with this topic, very rarely you see Johnny this subdued. He doesn't like this subject at all. I mean, maybe he just is organic to your love of rugby crew.
I don't know if you knew this, but I actually presented a rugby show here a couple of months ago.
I know,
so partly it's actually to advance my work career as well.
No, I listened to that show as well.
Me and Big Mal.
You and Big Mal basically bonded, you said.
Yeah, at the breakdown.
It was an unlikely sort of twin-style relationship.
Though. I would be a social pariah in Rathgar unless I knew something about rugby, and I still don't, but I'm getting.
But have you got enough small talk to get you through
at the breakdown?
Those awkward sort of brunch discussions?
Yeah. This is rugby country,
Well, if anybody's got any questions about Rob Kearney's performance last night, we do have Johnny Ward in studio to help you out throughout the afternoon at Off the Ball.
Q&A section with Johnny,
100. Let's do that. Do that.
Johnny's rugby queries.
I tell you what, though, and what was quite remarkable as going to League of Ireland games where people don't treat you like some sort of scumbag if you'd like to actually have a drink during the game. Like half the people seem to be enjoying a beer. And I'm like, why does this not happen at League of Ireland grounds? It would be actually make quite a bit of money for a lot of clubs. And, your plastic, pint of Guinness or Heineken or whatever it was. And it made, there was no score for about 35 minutes. So it was pretty quiet, but people were enjoying themselves. And I don't know why this can't happen at football grounds.
Well, there's a branding that goes with that,
Yeah, but there is. But why can't you have a beer why can't you bring your beer out at Dalymount, for argument's sake?
There'd be a security discussion about that wouldn't be.
I think that's not. I think it's a nonsense.
Dan, you were at the Malone Cup last night.
Yeah, I was. I wanted to get some Friday night football back in. I mean, what the type of thing that Johnny would have been up for last year.
But I thought so. Yeah.
Last year he would have been all over the pre-season games.
Was there football on?
Yeah. So no, I was just up watching. It was actually Dundalk's first game since Stephen Kenny left, I guess. So just watching to see how they were faring. Life after Stephen Kenny. I mean, they were 5-0 up after half an hour, so it's a bit of a non-event. It just reminds you that the difference between, let's say, Dundalk, who are full-time, look super fit after 2-3 weeks of pre-season, against the Drogheda side, who, and this hasn't been unkind because the Drogheda management team would say it, that some of their lads were, sort of working day jobs yesterday, and the Dundalk boys are, they're properly full-time. They're going away to Spain on Monday.
Johnny's getting a call about rugby here.
That's an alert from Leinster Rugby, I think. It's ticket sales for the next match.
Just text me there.
But look, Dundalk are off to Spain on Monday for 6 days to play like teams from Austria and Sweden, like the second best team in Austria at the moment, and like to draw the lads. One of them, I think, was working as a hairdresser yesterday, and it's worlds apart.
Sure.
So
any of the Dundalk lads look good.
Well, the most interesting player in the pitch last night was a trialist, Sean Murray, who again, some listeners, maybe anyone, if any Watford fans out there, he's ex-Watford Irish under-21 international who played championship football at 18, and if you were sitting down sort of 5-6 years ago to do one of these, name the Irish senior team in 10 years' time, I think some people would have put him into it as an absolute cert. Right. He's English born, but Irish qualified and played with Ireland all the way up. And once there was a takeover of Watford at one point by an Italian family, and he just since then, I don't know, he just didn't quite make that step up when the club went to like the next level. But he's actually on the books of a Danish club at the moment, so he's actually only, with their permission, playing on trial last night. But he looked really good next to McElhenney, Michael Duffy. You just realised that Dundalk still have by far the strongest squad. But the one thing about someone like Murray, if they sign him, there's naturally a lot of excitement about Chris Forrester coming back into the league. We might touch on that later on. Forrester's come back. Jack Byrne, who's come home from sort of a troubled year or so to play for Shamrock Rovers this year. Actually, someone like Sean Murray has played. He's been more successful in terms of like playing championship football, which these lads didn't manage to do. His pedigree is top class if he could get him back. But so yeah, we'll see. I mean, like the golfing resources that Dundalk still have relative to other clubs. You can talk about the manager leaving. That's still going to be there's going to be a major impact off that. Of course, there will be. It'll take them a while to adjust to it, but they still have the resources there to be so strong. And you just watched them last night tearing around in the first 20-25 minutes off the back of a really good pre-season that they've had, and you're thinking, yeah, I mean, they'll probably still win the league this year anyway.
Yeah, and we will discuss their former manager Stephen Kenny a little bit later on in the show as well, and his homegrown under-21, or home-based under-21 squad, I should say, that was announced this week. I should say before that though, this week we've teamed up with the Irish Heart Foundation, who want you to show some heart for the perfect match. Challenge your rival to a charity football game in aid of the Irish Heart Foundation. You can sign up at irishheart.ie/perfect match, and we have a pretty amazing prize to give away. We're giving you the chance to play with Kevin Kilbane in a five-a-side game and be managed by the legendary John Giles and Brian Kerr, and we'll give you details on how to win that prize.
You have to basically donate. If you donate €5 to the Irish Heart Foundation on their website, and you're entered into that draw. Screenshot us at Off the Ball on Twitter. But Kev Kilbane, he's still on the line, I think. But Kev, myself and Johnny and Dan, I think, are all in your team on Monday.
I think we are, yeah.
Oh yeah, of course, that's it.
Where are you going to play us? What's the setup here?
I'm not the manager. I'm not the manager. I'm just wearing the big armband, the big fat armband. That's me. So I'm playing. I've had the discussion with Brian. Told him where I want to play, and the rest of you can all speak to the manager and see what he's got to say to you.
What's your position, lads? Dan and Johnny, Shane?
I'm Crouchy up front. I think stick it in high.
Crouchy up front.
Yeah, they used to call me Crouchy. We used to play for Monaghan Town.
It's a game of Astro, though, is it?
It is, yeah. So keep it low, maybe.
I actually don't think Peter Crouch would be much good at Astro, and I don't think you would be if you play like that either.
No. Scrap that plan.
Yeah.
Johnny's going to provide some legs to the team, some energy.
Legs?
Yeah, that was your role.
I'm 36 years of age.
So am I. That was your description the other night.
A homeless man today on the street he called me young man, and I was really, really, happy about this. Yeah. I'm not a young man, and I can't provide legs. I wouldn't be getting a game if I were a professional player anymore.
Yeah. There's been a lot of smack talk in the office actually between the coaches and the Dubs.
Oh yeah,
a lot of it.
Well, Kev's appraisal of the two teams was pretty shocking during the week.
Yeah. Let's not forget the fact here that Keith Andrews is no longer with the Dubs anymore. He's got other jobs to worry about now.
Oh, yeah.
And Mossy Quinn has now stepped in to captain the other team. Yeah. I'm not sure about you, Kev, but I think that's a little bit unfair that you're captaining one team and Mossy Quinn. I'm sure if it was GEA, he'd be just fine, but on a football pitch, it's not great, is it?
Yeah, well, Mossy can just man-mark me. I think that's the way it's going to be, isn't it? He's going to take me out. He's already texted me to tell me that that's it, the end of me with my assessment of the Dubs. No, Johnny, it was harsh but fair. I've seen a lot of those lads playing football, those Dubs, and I just don't rate them. So, I'm expecting them to step up to the plate a little bit and show me what they can do.
Yeah, it's giving the team talk to them. Yeah. I don't know, sometimes a good GEA player on an Astro pitch can cause chaos. They make it into a very different kind of contest.
Invariably,
how so?
Just to make it into a sort of a scrappy
a war of
affair.
attrition.
A war of attrition.
Are
Yeah.
you saying that GA players are filthy?
No, I'm not saying that.
Yes.
They bring a certain. When we've got Shane Stapleton on our side, actually,
He's
as
a
well,
unique case.
that's what he's going to bring to the mix as well.
probably be
I would've
wearing,
thought, he's just there to rough things up if you want, like, you know.
He'll probably bring a hurl.
Yeah, he probably will. Yeah, that's it. Like, he's going to be cheering free kicks. You know what I mean? So like, that's the culture that he comes from. You know, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you know, there could be some cynical fouling. You know, could take place.
But I mean, 5 and 7 aside, a lot is about fitness. Mossy Quinn is going to be a fit guy. Kev, what's your fitness like at the moment?
Yeah.
Average, very average. Yeah, no, I'll just be. I'll hopefully probably sitting at the base of midfield, maybe go up front once or twice as well to play off Crouchy, and then and see what happens. Yeah,
You'll probably bring Maguire off the bench in the second half.
I tell you what, he'd be better than one or two of those lads that's playing in that dub side, honestly.
We are going to put together a highlight package, so anybody who's not coming along, anybody who isn't one of the lucky prize winners can actually catch us probably Tuesday maybe on the show, so keep an eye on our social channels for all of that.
Good cause though, in fairness. Like, it's not the worst thing to donate to.
Absolutely, and it is irishheart.ie/perfect match if you want to challenge a rival to a football game in aid of the Irish Heart Foundation. Shane, you've got an update in terms of what's going on in sport?
Indeed, we'll start with tennis, Eoin. So Naomi Osaka recovered from a dramatic second set collapse to defeat Petra Kvitova and be crowned Australian Open tennis champion earlier and the new women's world #1. The 21-year-old has built on her maiden title at the US Open with a 7-6, 5-7, 6-4 victory to make it back-to-back slam successes. Kvitova was playing in her first Grand Slam final since winning her second Wimbledon title in 2014, and only 2 years after that knife attack we referenced earlier at her home that put her career in the balance. We can hear here from Naomi Osaka after her win.
Hello. Sorry, public speaking isn't really my strong side, so I just hope I can get through this. Huge congrats to you, Petra. I've always wanted to play you, and you've been through so much, and honestly, I wouldn't have wanted this to be our first match. But yeah, huge congrats to you and your team, and you're really amazing, and I'm really honored to have played you in the final of a Grand Slam. I don't think I would have made it through this week without you guys, and behind a tennis player is always a team, and I'm really grateful, so thank you guys. I read notes before this, but I still forgot the rest of what I'm supposed to say. So just thank you, everyone, and I'm really honored to have played in this final, so yeah, thank you.
Before we go through the rest of your update there, Shane, I'm just going to interrupt because we want to go to the Liberty Stadium. We've had our first goal of the 3 o'clocks in the fourth round FA Cup clashes. It is Swansea against Gillingham, and Sam Fleet has the goal news.
Swansea City 1, Gillingham 0. Swansea in command from the first few moments, and they lead thanks to a beautiful McBurney header. It was a lovely move. McKay deferred to Selina, and a little chip pass across McBurney. Lovely header into the bottom corner. No chance for the keeper. Swansea 1, Gillingham 0.
Yeah, we'll move on to rugby next. Dragons against Munster has kicked off 15 minutes ago. Dragons 7, Munster 0 is the score so far. A victory for Johan van Graanside side would see them move top of Conference A, so a win quite important for them. They are on a run of 4 wins in all competitions, and so they're hoping to get another one in that game, but 7-0 down early on. Connacht are in action meanwhile later on. They play against, they're at 5:15 against Cardiff Blues. That's an away game for them. Also, last night Leo Cullen's Leinster fell short of a bonus point, but tries from Rory O'Loughlin, James Lowe and Barry Daly helped them to a 22-17 win over the Scarlets at the RDS. Cullen assessed his side's performance after the game and felt they got a tad lucky to get the win.
We feel a little bit fortunate to come away with a win for sure. Mixed performance. I thought defensively, okay, we held our shape quite well in the first half. Like Scarlets are a very dangerous team. They caught us a couple of times, probably through more the middle of the field. So a lot of it was just down to some missed tackles. So that's a concern. Scrambled well for each other in the first half, and then it was pleasing just to get build some pressure at the end of the first half, get in for a try. Start of the second half, for whatever reason, it's almost like we'd gone down a gear in all our actions, and we allow Scarlets into the game, and we give an intercept pass, and considering we had a pretty strong breeze at our backs in the second half, we don't particularly manage where we were trying to play the game. And then we get fortunate with Scarlets dropping the ball pretty much like an open goal, really, as much as you'd see, and then they miss a kick pretty much in front of the post as well. So that's 10 points from them. Like we win the game by 5. So it's a big swing. Scarlets then, they build a lot of pressure on us, and obviously they get in and for their try in the end, where they get us on the edge, another missed tackle. And against better teams, you're going to get punished. So eventually we did get punished. So the score is now 10-all. I thought we actually managed that part of the game quite well. The next 10 or 15 minutes, I thought we played much more attacking intent. Some of the guys came off the bench, provided good impact for us. And then we look okay at 22-10 all of a sudden, and then suddenly it's let's get back into that shift down a gear again, and we lose a bit of intensity, and we bounce off another tackle in the middle of the field, and Scarlet score again, and suddenly we're in this very tense affair again. And like Scarlet's even at the end make another break through the middle of the field, and thankfully they don't have the pace with their inside support. That's another player on the inside, and we lose the game. So yes, we feel fortunate to have come away with a win.
Yeah, Leinster head coach Leo Cullen there speaking after their 22-17 win over the Scarlets at the ODS in the Guinness Pro 14 last night. As I said, Munster currently in action, 7-0 down against Dragons. 18 minutes played there. Lloyd Fairbrother with the try for Dragons. Josh Lewis converted that one as well. Connacht in action at 5:15. They're away to Cardiff Blues, as I said, 5:15. Lock Killian Gallagher, I should mention, starts for the first time this campaign for the Western Province. On loan, Tom Daly is picked at centre as well. Golf next, Bryson DeChambeau has established a one-shot lead over the field on day 3 of the Omega Dubai Desert Classic. The American has moved to 16 under par after a 4 under third round 68. Shane Lowry meanwhile 9 under heading into tomorrow's final round. He shot a 71 today. Justin Rose leads the way after the second round of the Farmers Insurance Open in San Diego. Meanwhile, the world number 1 has a 3-shot advantage after moving on to 15 under par. Tiger Woods is back on 4 under. Rory McIlroy meanwhile surged up the leaderboard to go within 7 strokes of Rose at Torrey Pines, and he was speaking about his round to Sky Sports afterwards.
Rory, well played. Very tidy round out there today. Bookended beautifully. How important was the start and the finish to today's second round?
Yeah, very important. It's always nice to, I hit 3 perfect shots right out of the gate on our first hole, which was the 10th, and played a great 9 holes and got myself, right back in the tournament. I played well yesterday. I played much better than that 71 suggested yesterday on the South Course. So I knew I just needed to go out today, play similarly, and just stay patient, hole a few putts, and I was able to do that nicely. And as you said, that birdie on the last, just capped off a nice day.
What was, you touched on it, but a bit more on the psychology of playing the North today, when you can get after it a little bit more, and having seen what the guys did on there yesterday? Yeah,
it was very hard, I would say, after playing the first 9 holes and 5 under par, to not have your expectations go to, I could shoot 63, 62, whatever. It's just about staying patient, hitting good golf shots, giving yourself chances. Felt like I was standing still for a little bit on the, sort of 12, 13, 14 out there, but, birdieing 2 of the last 3, it was nice to finish that way.
First time at Torrey? As good and beautiful as you hope for?
Yeah, I'll definitely be back. It's gorgeous. What a great way to spend a week. There's a lot of courses on this West Coast swing that are pretty spectacular, but standing on that 16th tee on the North Course especially, and looking back to the cliffs in the ocean, it's pretty nice.
Yep, Rory McIlroy speaking after his 65 at Torrey Pines, so he's in decent shape heading into the final 2 rounds. Gaelic Games as well. Dublin manager Jim Gavin has picked 9 of the players that started last year's All-Ireland final for tomorrow's trip to Monaghan in Division 1 of the Allianz Football League in Clonus. Con O'Callaghan starts in the league for the first time, while Evan Comerford has been selected in goal. No mention of Stephen Cluxton. There's also a start at cornerback for Conor Mullally. The Football League gets underway with the Connacht Derby this evening. FBD League winners Roscommon make the trip to McHale Park to face James Horan and Kevin Kilbane's Mayo. Down host last season's Division 4 champions Laois at Newry in Division 3, while there's a clash of Waterford and Wicklow in the 4th flight at Friar Field. In the hurling, Tip host Clare in Division 1A. That's a repeat of the Munster League final. In Division 1B, it's Dublin against Carlow at Parnell Park. Some athletics news this afternoon as well. Ireland's Phil Healy has got her indoor season off to an ideal start by winning the 400 metres at the Vienna International Meet. The Cork sprinter warmed up for the upcoming Europeans by clocking 52.31 seconds in Austria. It's the fastest 400 metres time in Europe so far this season. There was some other news as well regarding Megan Connolly I wanted to bring you this afternoon. Republic of Ireland international Megan Connolly has joined Brighton and Hove Albion until the end of the season. The 21-year-old had been playing for college side Florida State Seminoles in America. Court native Connolly is expected to go straight into the Brighton squad for their game against Manchester City in the English Super League tomorrow. And finally, Eoin, some racing news as well. Honeysuckle has maintained her unbeaten record by easing to victory in the BetVictor Sullorina Mares Novice Hurdle at Ferryhouse earlier this afternoon. Under jockey Rachel Blackmore and the Bromheads mount justified 6-4 favouritism in making the step up to Grade 3 company. The Bromhead says she's unlikely to run again before the Mares Novice Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival in March.
Nice one, Shane. Thanks for that. So Kevin Kilbane is still with us on the line, and we've got a text
always
in.
at us, isn't he?
We've got a text in from, might be a Freudian slip here, because we've got a text from Jerry, Kev, that says, United were absolutely fantastic last night, Kevin. Why can't you say that?
Well, do you think I'm anti-Man United?
He must
Man United did I not say Man United played well last night? Did I not say that? You only asked me a few questions about them and how they played. Arsenal were pretty poor. I thought first half United played very well. Second half, Arsenal came back into it. Yeah, they played well. Did I say anything different from that?
Well, I don't know, Jerry clearly thinks you're not giving them the full due credit. We should talk a little bit more specifically about some of the players last night. We've mentioned Sanchez before the news there. We've got to talk about Romelu Lukaku's performance last night, because it's hard to read too much into any player really up against that Arsenal defence sometimes. But I often wonder, when you look at Lukaku in a performance like that, if he's sometimes miscategorised by the size of him, and that he automatically has to be a number 9 because he's a big guy.
In what way, though? You're saying, well, the way I would see it from Lukaku is, yes, he created 2 goals last night, but I've watched Romelu Lukaku so many times, and that's during his West Brom days, his Everton days, and his Man United days now. And I have not seen a huge amount of improvement to his hold-up play. I haven't seen it, and that's something you think you're going to Man United. I think he was recently described by an ex-Man United player as having the worst ever first touch for a Man United striker. You know, it sounds a bit harsh, but I've not necessarily seen his game improved in that respect. I haven't. I think his movement's become a little bit clever. I think he's probably learned to time his runs better off the shoulder defenders. But the weakest part of his game, which he always has been, is his hold-up play.
It's definitely what Kev says is definitely true, and his one-touch play and kind of fast, kind of attacking movements just isn't good enough. And I've always seen that in Lukaku. He's slightly a one-trick pony. Now, his pass for Sanchez last night was something that we don't see enough of from him, and it shows that he does have that in his arsenal. But when he's playing against proper defences, which Arsenal are not, time and time again, that inadequacy does come to the fore. That he's just not quick enough in terms of his sense of kind of, I suppose, the intelligence of his game to make those quick passes and his hold-up play.
Well, I think if you look at it in relation to Rashford, though, Owen.
I guess I'm asking, was there a glimmer of hope at all last night from a Lukaku perspective, that maybe with the ball directly at his feet, not relying on him as much in terms of being a hold-up player, it's a one-off performance then, is it, from Lukaku, or is there something to work on here?
No, I'm not saying that, because the amount of goals that he scored, you can't underestimate that he does have something. He brings something to a team. But I think the sign of Romelu Lukaku in relation to Marcus Rashford is indicative of English football. Just because you've gone out and bought a player for 75 million, which is going to rise to 100 million, it automatically means you've got to play him. If anyone that would have seen Marcus Rashford when he's brought into the United side, you're thinking, right, you've got a superstar here. You've got a player that's going to go on and potentially could go on and be one of the best strikers around world football. Not too dissimilar to a Kane. I would probably say he's got a little bit, well, he has. He's got a lot more pace than Harry Kane. So potentially he could have more to his game than a Harry Kane. Yet because you've paid 80 million or 100 million for a striker, you've got to play him ahead of Rashford, and he then gets put out on the wing. He doesn't necessarily get a run of games playing in what we would all naturally think is his best position. That goes across the English game. That goes across Premier League football, because if it's a club that can only afford 20 million, if it's a club that can only afford 5 million, you pay a lot of money for a striker. He automatically goes in ahead of the youngster that's come through the ranks. That's why, it was quite refreshing actually recently to see Declan Rice when he's holding out for his contract, and he's saying, look, no, I'm worth this. I'm playing alongside lads, or I'm keeping lads out the side that's earning perhaps even 10, 15 times more money than him. I want to get what I'm due, and that's not what's happened across the game. And now I think you're starting to see it more, and people might talk about football as being greedy, and people have their own opinion on that. But I'm talking ability-wise here in relation to Rashford and Lukaku. Rashford's way better. He's technically way better. He's got so much more to his game. But because Lukaku's been so much money's been spent on him, he automatically plays, and I just don't think it's fair.
There is also the idea of Rashford and Jesse Lingard as well, as we saw last night, who brought a bit more of an edge to their game over the last month or so. There's a bit of a schmozzle on the sideline last night, and there's nothing wrong with that from a Manchester United perspective, seeing the likes of Lingard and Rashford not being afraid to give it up to the Arsenal players.
Yeah, I think Solskjaer spoke about that in the lead up to this game, saying they're both Manchester lads or Salford lads. They both come through the ranks here. They're no pushovers, and then that comes about. I think they've got it in the game. Do you know what, Owen? If you don't get through to professional football and rise up through the ranks unless you've got a bit of edge to your game. It's a fact. You can't do it. It's no matter people talk about lads having great personalities and being nice guys. You've got to have an edge to your game if you're going to rise through professional ranks of professional football.
There's been another goal in the FA Cup. It's been in Manchester. It's Manchester City against Burnley. Here's Darren Stanage.
Manchester City 1, Burnley 0. Gabriel Jesus with the goal. He was making it himself as well. He collected the ball inside the area. Tight angle on the left-hand side. Was able to turn, got back, fire a shot low. And although Nick Pope got a foot to it, he couldn't keep it out. It's Manchester City 1, Burnley 0.
One last point to Manchester United before we wrap up last night's game, Kev, is just about their defence. How big are the question marks at the moment about their defence?
Well, I think it's been there, hasn't it? I think they probably do need a new centre-half. They need a more dominant centre-half. That's clearly not of the level of Liverpool, I would probably say, and maybe one or two others that surround them in the Premier League. But I think, as I said earlier on to you, and I think certainly Solskjaer going in there, he had to get the attacking players performing. He had to get them on side, playing with a bit of expression and enjoying the games. That clearly wasn't happening. I think if those players are going to start outscoring sides, then it won't necessarily be a problem. But there are issues that they do need to sort out defensively. Yeah, they're certainly far from the finished article.
We've had a text in from Gronie and Limerick who says, hey lads, a heads up for Johnny regarding his new love of rugby. Tell him it's a rugby match, not a rugby game. Big giveaway. So
is that Gronie, is it?
Gronie and Limerick.
It's a rugby match, not a rugby game. It's not a rugby game.
Huh?
Is that the official lingo, is it?
I haven't heard it before. I'd be more inclined to call it every match.
It's great, though, that Johnny has found love and found the love of rugby as well. It's tremendous, isn't it?
Which do you think he loves more, Kev?
Jesus, I mean, if she's listening in, I think
yeah,
hell, I'd want to love her more than rugby.
I won't name names, but it's the love of the girl. I'm convinced of that.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Kev.
So am I.
What a story.
We do want to talk Ireland. We want to talk Stephen Kenny, and perhaps you've got a piece this morning in the Irish Independent, Dan, about the Irish players that are on window watch at the moment. But before that, it's a story you've been on top of for the last month or so. What's going on with the Gibraltar pitch at this point? It's been another development.
Well, the game's in Gibraltar now. So, no, there's just a suggestion that if the game had been moved to Faro, I don't think Mick McCarthy would have shed any tears over it, because he's a small bit worried about that surface in the Victoria Stadium. Although I think it has been relayed. Some people might remember it from when Lincoln Red Imps beat Celtic that time. It was Brendan Rodgers' first game, and I actually saw someone talking about it today, saying like it's a multi-purpose pitch that's used for all variety of sports and stuff in Gibraltar, because it's not a particularly big place. Now, as I said, I think they have done some work on the pitch lately, but there was just suggestions that McCarthy, although the FAI couldn't really get involved at all in the Gibraltar, because it was between Gibraltar and UEFA that they had to get the all clear for the match to be played in Gibraltar, and it looked like it was going to be moved to Portugal, and then it's not. And I think there's just some concern about the impact of the surface when, 3 days later, it's not so much about the game itself, although I mean I suppose it can go against you, but more so they're playing Georgia at home 3 days later, and for just two games in a short space of time could be a bit hard on the body. So I don't think they would have been that upset. At the same time, you have to step back at it and go, it is only Gibraltar, lads, and as much as that surface may not be an ideal game to start the campaign on, and I'm sure Mick McCarthy, I watched the documentary the other night, which I recommend people, McCarthy's Park.
Oh, brilliant.
Documentary and his actual, I think his first game of competitive game was Liechtenstein away, and obviously Ireland had a bit of previous under Charlton drawn in Liechtenstein. So I think there was a bit of jitters around that match, and I'm sure there'll be a natural nerves around this game that maybe shouldn't exist if you look at 11v11 v the players. I mean, Gibraltar's last home game, they did lose 6-2. So, I mean, to Armenia. So, I mean, you can't build them up to be anything that they're not. But I suppose, yeah, it's a slight concern. Very few Irish fans will be able to be at the game, I think 800 or something like that. So it has the opportunity to be tricky in its own way. I would say McCarthy's Park, you get some cameos from a young Kevin Kilbane, Kilbane as he was called by the narrator. Young Kevin Kilbane.
Watching him, I'm not sure who you were playing for at the time.
He was West Brom.
West Brom, yeah.
So there's a section where Mick McCarthy goes up to watch West Brom play in the Hawthorns. It looks like a really dark, sort of grey Tuesday night, but all of a sudden this winger emerges from the darkness to side past a couple of players, and then it cuts to crowd shots of McCarthy looking suitably Yes.
I would say
I'm going to play him
that
every time I possibly can for the next 5 yeyears.
But I would say though it's wrongly edited, that. So yeah. So when you're watching it, you'll know that's wrong. I was actually picked. I'd had my international debut before that was actually shown. Before that clip of me playing for West Brom.
Right, okay, so why did they do that? Just to create the tension, just to show this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was called up for the senior side while I was actually at Preston, so it's just before I moved to West Brom. So I was called up for the summer games, which I think they were actually against Liechtenstein that summer. I was called into the squad for those games, and I was injured. I just had an operation. And then Mick's first game that following season, which of course was the Iceland game, I was in. So we'd only played one game, which was Tranmere, the first game of the season before I made my international debut.
I think he'd be encouraged by just a few things that are happening of late. Callum O'Dowda got an absolute screamer last night, and if reports are to be believed, he's linked with a few Premier League clubs.
I watched him play last week for Bristol City against Forest, and he was really impressive.
He's such a talented player.
Alan Brown again today, lads, as well, amongst the goals.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
I think Ryan Manning is starting today for QPR. Now he's probably it's a quintessential kind of QPR putting out this team in the FA Cup, but there are Seamus Keneally was even playing earlier on for Accrington Stanley. A lot of Irish in action today, but like the likes of Manning, I think Owen Cowser had an article in the Sun this week about him possibly needing a move. He's another player that certainly hasn't, I think, fulfilled his potential. But O'Dowd is a very interesting one because if we could find I don't know, Dan, where his actual best position is.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was actually playing on the right side of
and
like 4-2-3-1 last week, but he switched sides to the left as well. So he's pretty versatile. I mean, Leeds were looking at him by all accounts. Bristol City have gave him a new contract, but it's actually just exercising an option in his contract rather than giving him a long-term deal. So he does seem like he's someone that he seems to tick boxes for a lot of people, and clearly Leeds and Bielsa or whoever's doing their scouting work, they've noticed, because Dad didn't play a lot of football for Bristol City last year. It's just this year he seems to have got into his groove, and he's still only 23. So he's one to watch. Manning is someone I mentioned actually in a piece today about someone who might need to move again because he'd gone back to QPR from Rotherham and not kicked the ball. Okay, he's playing in the FA Cup. I don't know if you can read much into that. It is. I mean, Kev mentions Alan Brown has scored for Preston. Sean Maguire's back playing, and hopefully he can stay fit for a couple of games. He's involved. Looks like he's playing on the left side again because they've signed a striker, Stockley, through the middle. So, there's things happening, and what we need to happen, I suppose, is some of those newer Championship players who maybe didn't thrive in the last year, maybe struggled a bit through the cloud that hung over the camp, that maybe the freshness of a new managerial team will sort of give them a new confidence and a new life that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I do wonder that, Kev, sometimes can the international situation sometimes seep into your club form?
Sorry, they just literally started playing a bit of Fatboy Slim here, so I can hardly hear what you're saying now. Bloody hell.
It looks like he's about to start DJing again, actually, to be fair,
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there was any Fatboy Slim in your set list, actually, when you played that game.
Sorry?
I was just asking about the idea of players who might have struggled under Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane, players whose confidence might have been dented by being in that international setup. Can that actually manifest itself for club form? Because Dan was just mentioning there that they potentially need to go and get themselves a club move. There's probably a list of 5 to 10 people who could probably do it in a new club situation from an Irish perspective.
No,
we'll come back to you, Kev. We'll come back to you. It is absolutely booming out there at the Den. It's Millwall against Everton coming up at 5:30. They've really started their PA system quite early there. We'll get
anybody who was watching on the streaming service there just got a real close-up shot of Kev just leaning in, struggling. Radio listeners are not really getting to grips with that,
Forest were 1-0 up as well, but Wigan have just equalised.
Yeah, Martin O'Neill actually, because I was there last week, and he's had probably a week longer to assess his options, and his team selections today seem to cause a lot of anger in Nottingham Forest Twitter world, that he dropped one of their top, Leo Scrabban, on the bench, Carvalho, their big money signing, on the bench, and it was said that he was playing 3 defensive midfielders in a 4-5-1.
Dan was telling me this during the week, and I thought
locals weren't happy at all. So I mean, the honeymoon, that's a short honeymoon.
I thought that the media must have been fascinating for him last week, because Dan was explaining like the faces of these Irish journalists who he may or may not have gotten on great with for obvious reasons.
Some of them, yeah.
I'm not just in general. I think his relationship with the media was probably a little bit tetchy over here, and then his first press conference after a game that they've lost, and there are the Irish journalists asking questions. I was like, poor Martin.
Sort of Pavlov's dog situation there. We've got plenty of updates to come from around the FA Cup. We're going to start at the Liberty Stadium. There's been a goal at Swansea against Gillingham. Here's Sam Fleet.
Swansea City have doubled their lead. The second goal of the game from Ollie McBurney. A lovely finish. He was given far too much space by the Gillingham defence, but he took full advantage. Into the area he went, and he slotted it inside the post of Thomas Holy in the Gillingham goal. It's Swansea 2, Gillingham 0.
Let's get an update from Montgomery Waters Meadow. It's Shrewsbury up against Wolves. Here's Shane Pennington.
Shrewsbury Town 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. Wolves having all the possession here, as you'd expect with the Premier League side, but haven't really yet opened a clear-cut chance for themselves. Gibbs White's had an effort over from 12 yards out, and Adama Traore has just shot over from a similar distance after a great play down the right-hand side from Helder Costa. Shrewsbury struggling to kind of go forward and get into this game, but at the moment they're frustrating their Premier League visitors. It's Shrewsbury Town 0, Wolves 0.
At the Riverside Stadium, it's Middlesbrough against Newport. Let's get an update from Stephen Goldsmith.
Middlesbrough 0, Newport County 0. No goals as of yet. After the League 2 started brighter, Borough are starting to have some efforts on goal. Aidan Flint headed over from a good position after Lewis Wing delivered a free kick into the box. Britt Sombalonga has had a couple of efforts too, both going wide, the wrong side of either post. Newport then created a chance from a corner. Dan Butler, the left back, ghosting into the box, but his effort was weak and got deflected back out of the box by the defenders. Currently it's Middlesbrough 0, Newport County 0.
Let's get an update from the Amex Stadium. It is Brighton and Hove Albion up against West Brom. Here's Richard Newman.
Brighton and Hove Albion 0, West Bromwich Albion 0. The Premier League hosts starting to up the intensity, and they forced a couple of decent saves from Jonathan Bond. The best chance is shot from Baram Kayal from outside the box. Bond couldn't gather, but Adebayo cleared with Florian Andone waiting to tap the ball in. Shane Duffy's also gone close, beating Bond to the ball from a corner, but couldn't connect cleanly with his header. Ibrahimovic has been running the show for Brighton. He's tested Bonds from distance. They hit another effort just over the bar. Not a great deal from the visitors, but Jonathan Lecco did cause some alarm in the Brighton back line when he burst into the box and curled his effort wide. It's Brighton 0, West Brom 0.
And finally, let's get an update from St James's Park. It's Newcastle up against Watford in an all-Premier League tie. Here's Lee Stott.
It's Newcastle 0, Watford 0. Really not too much to tell you about since we last spoke. Both teams much changed from the last Premier League game, all 11 for Watford in fact. We've got Newcastle going with a relatively unfamiliar 5-2-3 formation. Hosselu is supported up front by Jacob Murphy and the thus far ineffectual Kennedy. Watford have gone 4-3-3. Dominguez Quina is pulling the strings from a deep midfield role. He's got time to run with the ball and pick out a good pass. It hasn't really got them anywhere yet, but the visitors look the brighter. Newcastle 0, Watford 0.
So just to recap, in the fourth round of the FA Cup, earlier on Derby County beat Accrington Stanley 1-0 away, and there's only been 3 goals so far in the 3 o'clock kickoffs. They've come at the Etihad Stadium, where Manchester City are 1-0 up against Burnley, and the other 2 goals have come at the Liberty Stadium, where Swansea City are 2-0 up against Gillingham. In the Championship, it's Aston Villa 1, Ipswich Town 0. Hull City are trailing by 2-0 away to Blackburn Rovers. Norwich City have a 1-0 lead at home to Sheffield United, while it's 1-1 between Nottingham Forest and Wigan Athletic. Leeds United, meanwhile, are away to Rotherham United, and they're down 1-0, while Stoke City trail by 1-0 at home to Preston North End. And there's yet to be a goal in the Scottish Premiership. The 2 games of note there are Aberdeen against Kilmarnock and Celtic against Hamilton Academical. We'll take a quick break.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Boyle Sports. Now with same-day withdrawals to your Visa debit card.
You couldn't make it up. News Talk's weekly topical panel show where news and comedy collide is recorded in front of a live audience every Thursday evening.
There's my cousin Mick. Yeah.
Each week, a host of top Irish funny folk pull apart the stories making the headlines and reassemble them in a pair of surreal and downright silly performances.
There's no Mexicans in China, is there?
For free tickets to the recordings of You Couldn't Make It Up on Thursday evenings in Tramline in Dublin, just go to newstalk.com/events.
Tell them nothing.
You Couldn't Make It Up with Pat O'Mahony
In partnership with Tesco.
on News Talk.
It's the 16th country I've seen them in on this tour jackpot.
The Lotto jackpot is €6 million. Play responsibly in-app, in-store or at lottery.ie. Lotto. Time to play. estimated jackpot.
The big clearance event is now on at Curry's PC World, with incredible deals across Ireland's largest range of home appliances and technology, plus free delivery on all large kitchen appliances. Save over €100 on JBL Bluetooth wireless portable speakers, get better than half price on small kitchen appliances, and up to €300 off large kitchen appliances. And save an exclusive €150 off the Samsung 32-inch Smart Curve TV, only $279. Big clearance savings in-store and online at currys.ie. At Curry's PC World, we help you get it right.
If you could hear pain...
It might sound like this.
Or this. And it can make you feel like this. You can't hear pain, but you can hear the sound of pain relief. Panadol Extra is up to 30% more powerful than standard paracetamol, so it can treat tough pain, which means you can get back to being you.
Panadol. When pain is gone, life takes its place. Panadol Extra 500mg, 65mg soluble effervescent tablets. Contains paracetamol. Always read the label.
At Carphone Warehouse, sticking to that resolution to save more is easy with the best deals across every network. Save up to €150 compared to the network stores and get the iPhone 6s for free or the Huawei P20 for only €49. Both on a €30 a month plan with all-you-can-eat data when you switch to 3, but only when you switch at Carphone Warehouse. Don't overpay. Switch today. Any network, any phone, any plan. Only Carphone Warehouse. T's and C's apply. Offer subject to 24-month contract.
At Cash and Carry Kitchens, we're giving away Nordmende appliances free with some of our best-selling kitchens. So select one of our best-selling kitchens, then pick the Nordmende appliances of your choice, worth up to a staggering €1,000. There are over 50 Nordmende appliances to choose from, including dishwashers, ovens, fridges and hobs. Call into any Cash and Carry Kitchens showroom nationwide and ask for details. Or go online to cashandcarrykitchens.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
If you've had a mortgage for years, or you're a first-time buyer, why pay more for mortgage protection than you have to? VHI now offer cover from as little as €7.58 per month. It's easy to set up or switch over the phone. Call us on 1890 444444 or search VHI Mortgage Protection. €7.58 per month is based on a 30-year-old non-smoker for a 20-year term and mortgage protection of €158,000, including a 10% customer discount and a 1% insurance levy. Terms and conditions apply. VHI Healthcare DAC, trading as VHI Healthcare, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland and is tied to Zurich Life Assurance plc for VHI Mortgage Protection.
Centra is on a mission to help you live every day to its fullest. In store at Centra this week, we have some great healthy offers to help you live well.
Like selected Centra fruit and veg, any 3 for €2. Deep River Rock Stillwater 6 bottle pack 500ml, only €2. And our mega deal until Sunday, Centra Irish chicken fillet 680 gram, half price at €4.50.
Log on to centra.ie to find easy workouts, recipe ideas and well-being tips.
Centra, live every day.
Urban living, great design, Scandinavian function and style, deeply rooted in timeless Danish tradition. Bow Concept Arnott's and Beacon South Quarter. Sale now on.
Hi, this is Paul Hackett from clickandgo.com. We all know how it feels in January. The credit card is maxed, the bank account is not looking great, but at Click and Go we make it easy for you to book your next holiday with our €1 holiday deposit. That's right, the full holiday including Aer Lingus flights, accommodation and transfers, all for just a €1 deposit. Other companies talk about low deposits, but Click and Go has the only genuine €1 holiday deposit that includes your flights. Book online or call one of our holiday experts now. And remember, we're open 7 days per week. Terms and conditions apply. clickandgo.com.
Green Book is being hailed as one of the best films of the decade.
I'm a black musician about to embark on a tour in the Deep South. You in the Deep South, there's going to be problems.
Nominated for 4 BAFTAs and 5 Oscars, including Best Picture.
We never win with violence.
And winner of 3 Golden Globes, including Best Film.
I didn't like the way he was treating you.
Critics are calling it remarkable, powerful, and superbly entertaining.
It's amazing you said that.
Inspired by a true friendship. Green Book, in cinemas January 30th, certificate 12A.
A train approaches the platform. For some, it's just the 6:45 to Houston. But for you, it's an office on wheels. Here, the canteen comes to you. The person sitting opposite you isn't just a passenger, they're a colleague. And regardless of what your business card says, from the moment you step on board, you're the boss. Rediscover the joy of the train. Great fares for business customers at irishrail.ie.
football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Boyle Sports. Now with same-day withdrawals to your Visa debit card.
You're very welcome back. It's just going half-time in all the FA Cup fourth round games. Still not much to talk about, mostly nil-alls. Manchester City 1, Burnley 0 and Swansea City 2, Gillingham 0 are the only games that have goals in the 3 o'clocks. Earlier on, Accrington Stanley went down 1-0 at home to Derby County, and Manchester United, of course, the other team that have progressed to the next round of the FA Cup after beating Arsenal last night. Now, next month, we'll be gearing up for Cheltenham and the Gold Cup with the special Bulmers Road to Gold event in Clonmel on the 1st of February. It won't be your average Cheltenham preview night. There'll be comedy from après matches. Barry Murphy, David Brady is going to be in the house, Vogue Williams as well, and a top line of guests. That'll include Nina Carberry, Kate Harrington, Ollie Bell from ITV, Johnny Ward is going to be there, and Ger Gilroy. To get your tickets, go to offtheball.com/events now. Tickets are free, but you must be over 18 to enter. It's the Bulmers Road to Gold event in the Clonmel Park Hotel on February the 1st. And Johnny, you were obviously at the event the other night with Rachel Blackmore. She's had a pretty good day today.
Yeah, it was. Rachel was there with Patrick Mullins and Davy Russell and Kevin Kilbane, Ger Gilroy himself, John Duggan, Nicky English. I think that was it. And we had a great night in the Sugar Club, and we had a bit of crack with Rachel because Rachel was making the point that Patrick Mullins introduced Rachel as the fact that they lived together, and it was almost implied that they were actually dating. But then Rachel was very quick to say, "Well, I lived there with my boyfriend Brian Hayes." And that was kind of the guy for what. But she's ridden Honeysuckle to victory today, and Dan was actually mentioning it to me before we came in. This is a really exciting mare for Henry de Bromhead. But meanwhile, over in Cheltenham, 2 of the graded races today also went to female riders. Bryony Frost won on Frodon, and Lizzie Kelly won a race earlier on, a grade 3 race. And it's just great for racing that, like, if Saturday is our big day in terms of people watching it at home, it's on terrestrial TV, and a generation of racegoers are now maybe getting into the game and watching on a Saturday, and Bryony Frost is winning so many races on Saturdays. It's really great for the image of the sport, and she's such a talented rider. I was just watching her today throughout the race, and her horses just really, really run for her. But racing in terms of what the female riders are doing at the moment is quite extraordinary. It really is.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially over jumps.
It's nearly at the stage where it's not even a news story anymore.
It's getting there, definitely.
No, it's still not quite, because like Rachel Blackmore is still, in theory, like challenging for the title.
Yeah.
And there's a novelty aspect to that. But the fact that a lady rider has won a big race, it's not a discussion point.
Yeah,
that's
the way it should be.
I think racing should sell that more, in that, like, it must be the only sport in the world where, like, it's becoming, so much equality in terms of it really doesn't matter what you are. You're competing on a level playing field, and I can't off the top of my head think of any sport where
this morning's final was pretty good.
No, but I would imagine now. I had no interest in tennis really, but I'd imagine if Nadal took on Serena Williams,
you mean parity in terms of
you're talking about mixed.
So but in racing there's no, and there's a gender allowance for riders in France that they were half talking about bringing in over here, but thankfully they haven't, because I just think it's sending out completely the wrong message, and it's fantastic for the sport what they're doing.
Big goal in the Scottish Premiership. Celtic have gone 1-0 up at home to Hamilton. Callum McGregor has got it. Just before we go back to the den to get some final thoughts from Kevin Kilbane, it has gone half time in a couple of the games. Let's go to Brighton against West Brom. Here's Richard Newman.
Half-time, Brighton and Hove Albion 0, West Bromwich Albion 0. Not the most scintillating half, but the home side have had the best chances to go ahead in this tie. The closest they've come, Florin Andone unable to convert a rebound after Jonathan Bond saved Bram Kayal's long-range effort. The West Brom keeper bailed out by some smart defending from Tosin Adarabioyo. Yves Bissouma's also gone close a number of times for Brighton, forcing a decent save from Bond and fizzing a shot just over the edge from the edge of the box. Just the one serious effort from West Brom. Jonathan Lecco curling a shot wide from just inside the box. At the break, it's goalless.
Let's get the halftime report from the game between Shrewsbury and Wolves. Here's Shane Pennington.
Shrewsbury Town 0, Wolves 0 here. So far the League One side have given as good as they've got here from Wolves. Wolves have had plenty of the possession, but arguably Shrewsbury have had the better chances. Matt Sadler headed over from 6 yards from a Haynes corner, and then Greg Doherty with a 25-yard shot forced a good save out of Ruddy. At the other end, Wolves have had opportunities. Gibbs White, Traore and Doherty have all shot over from 12 yards, while Helder Costa's shot forced a good save from Steve Arnold. It's Shrewsbury 0, Wolves 0.
At St James's Park, it's half-time in the All-Premier League clash between Newcastle United and Watford. Here's Lee Stott.
It's Newcastle 0, Watford 0. Very few chances to open the scoring, but the best of them for the visitors. A powerful shot from the impressive Dominguez Quina was palmed over the bar by Freddie Woodman. Not long after that, VAR was needed to determine whether Isaac Hayden clattering into Daryl Janmat was in the penalty box. It wasn't, and Nathaniel Shalabar came close from a free kick instead. The home side have shown little, though the away team haven't been much better. Half-time, Newcastle 0, Watford 0.
At the Liberty Stadium, it's half-time between Swansea and Gillingham. Here's Sam Fleet.
It's Swansea City 2, Gillingham 0 at half-time. The Championship side fully deserving their 2-goal cushion. Both goals came from Ollie McBurney. The first, a lovely header from a fur cross, and then a superb low effort into the bottom corner from just inside the box. The Swans also had a McKay shot hit the inside of the post. The Gills have had a couple of corners, but otherwise not really threatened at all. At the break, Swansea City 2, Gillingham 0.
And Stephen Goldsmith's got the report from the Riverside Stadium, where it's Borough against Newport.
Middlesbrough 0, Newport County 0. No goals, but we've had chances. Lewis Wing hit the bar for Borough after a free kick was deflected back to the young midfielder and he let fly. Hero of round 3 for Newport, Padraig Amond, has made a couple of chances for himself. One, a very impressive swivel and shot inside the box, but Randolph saved with his legs. There's been some panicky defending at times for the League 2 side, but they are holding their own so far. Half-time, Middlesbrough 0, Newport County 0.
And the other All-Premier League clash today, there's two of them. It's Manchester City against Burnley. It's half-time. Here's Darren Stanich with the report.
Manchester City 1, Burnley 0. Straightforward 45 minutes for City. They lead and look comfortable here at the break. The only goal so far on 22 minutes. Gabriel Jesus collected Stones' pass, tight angle inside the area on the left. He cut back onto his right foot into the centre, and his shot went in off Pope's foot. Gundogan's had a couple of efforts. Pope has saved well from Danilo and Jesus. Burnley so far not looking a threat at the other end. Very comfortable for the home side. It's Manchester City 1, Burnley 0.
Yeah, so as I say, it's been a fairly uneventful first half in the FA Cup fourth round, just the 3 goals there. Dan, just to briefly touch on before we go to 4 o'clock news, it's the Stephen Kenny quotes from midweek. We'll get into it more in the 4 to 5 hour. The standout quote and one that jumped off the papers to all of us was the just focusing on players who are Irish line, and I think that kind of makes perfect sense from an under-21's perspective, because given how tough it's going to be to qualify for the next tournament, development is the key to Stephen Kenny's role.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think he in saying that he was ruling out, sort of players who are already in the system, who are, say, English-born or have declared for Ireland, or were very clear about wanting to play for Ireland. But what he basically said was, and he was very clear on it, that he wasn't going to get engaged in the business of recruitment. And that's certainly something that would have been levelled, charge would have been levelled at Noel King, that the profile of a squad. Well, actually, King would have been quite loyal to players that had been in the squad for a campaign. But I mean, towards the end, there was games where maybe there was 3 to 4, maybe homegrown starters. And even the last double header, a guy from Coventry, and no disrespect to him, Jordan Shipley, I mean, he's playing regularly for Coventry in League One, but he was brought in to play in a double header. Even though he's not eligible for the next campaign. Like, what's the point? What's the real point of that? So I think Kenny's focus is going to be very much on people who are on board already and are clear in their focus and wanted to play for Ireland. And I don't think he's necessarily just going to flood it with, say, League of Ireland players. He also said he wasn't going to do that. He will sort of, what's the child, pick it on its merits, judge it on its merits. But I certainly think that we probably will see a different profile and flavour to the squad, and maybe because he is the next senior manager, as much as there's a focus on results, if he sees someone who's 19, 20, who he thinks is very talented, and I guess, technical or whatever it might be, and he spoke about wanting them to play with a certain style, and he wants technical players. The benefit of them playing 6 to 8 games at an international stage, I mean, could really help their development over the next 2 years, next 2 to 3 years. So hopefully, come the time he's taken over and they're maturing, and they have a bit of an experience. And this would have been the point, maybe, that sometimes we've picked sides for results rather than for development. And players like Sean Maguire, for example, I mean, Sean Maguire wouldn't have played for 21 side. He played, but he was a sub. And yet, you look now a couple of years later, and actually he was better than the players that were ahead of him, who might have been deemed more streetwise or a bit more ahead of him at that stage. So it is going to be interesting to see the approach and the style, and the 21s are going to be scrutinised in a way that they haven't been before. I mean, qualification is very unrealistic still because so few teams qualify for that tournament.
They have to top their group.
They have to basically top their group. Only one second place team goes through, whereas, for example, I mean, we qualify in the under 17 level, but the under 17 level, there's 16 teams get into the tournament. So the 21s is much harder. 19s is very difficult, and this year it's deemed our best chance in some time, I think since 2011, to qualify for a 19s, because Ireland are top seeds through the qualifying phase, and they're in a group in March where they're deemed to have a good chance. But that's hard. 19s and 21s are really hard to qualify for. So, yes, results matter, and of course, if Stephen Kenny's teams are getting tanked, then there will be a focus and debate, but it's not just about the results. I think the style and the performance, and maybe will he go with the players to, that may not be on paper at better clubs than maybe some of the people that are, that might be left out. That's what we're interested to see. Will he bring a very new approach? Whereas before there was a sense of, well, how are they doing in England? Yeah. I don't think Stephen Kenny really is a slave maybe to the English ladder in the way that maybe that other people might be. Yeah, we're going to get into that in a much more depth after the break. Before we go there, let's just tell you that Munster are losing to Dragons at the moment. They're down 7-3. Bill Johnston with the penalty for Munster there, the only score. The second halves of the FA Cup will be up and running once we're back with you. We're going to take news and a quick break. We'll chat to you soon.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Boyle Sports. Now with same-day withdrawals to your Visa debit card.
Join that conversation. Text us on 53106. Texts cost 30 cents.
Venice. Exotic, mysterious, romantic. Journey through the canals and piazzas of this ancient, enchanting Italian city with Canaletto and the Art of Venice. The new exhibition now on at the National Gallery of Ireland. Italy's foremost painter brings to life the breathtaking beauty of Venice. Canaletto and the Art of Venice at the National Gallery of Ireland. Tickets from €5 at nationalgallery.ie. Under 16s and friends of the gallery go free. The National Gallery of Ireland. Inspiration for the nation.
Toyota Hybrid is definitely the way to go.
For me, it was an easy decision. The cost savings of the fuel, the insurance and the car tax, that's the price of a holiday.
From my own setup as a mum, a full tank would last me 5 to 6 weeks, which I just couldn't believe.
With greater fuel economy, driving Toyota Hybrid means real savings.
People just want to know, is it cheaper to run? Which it is, of course.
Join thousands of Irish drivers and switch to a self-charging hybrid today. Toyota, built for a better world.
Don't miss Vice, the best film of the year.
Hot damn.
The untold story of the most powerful vice president in history.
So what's the plan?
The plan is to take over the place.
Bush approved all of this?
Nope.
It's ferociously funny and now nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, starring Christian Bale, Amy Adams, Steve Carell, Sam Rockwell, and Tyler Perry. Vice, in cinemas now. Rated 15A.
A business needs to be creative to stay ahead of the game. And creative brains need space to think. Give them space. Think better. But let's do it with a little style. Castleknock means business. Discover more at castleknockhotel.com.
A train approaches the platform. For some, it's just the 6:45 to Houston. But for you, it's an office on wheels. Here, the canteen comes to you. The person sitting opposite you isn't just a passenger, they're a colleague. And regardless of what your business card says, from the moment you step on board, you're the boss. Rediscover the joy of the train. Great fares for business customers at irishrail.ie.
The outcome of Brexit may not be certain, but one thing is clear: your business could face serious challenges. Enterprise Ireland can help your business respond to the risks and opportunities which Brexit presents. Plan, innovate, compete and diversify with our wide range of supports. Start taking action now. Speak to your Enterprise Ireland Development Advisor or visit prepareforbrexit.ie, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
Mattresses-delivered.ie. Nationwide delivery within 48 hours for free. That's mattresses-delivered.ie. Lowest prices guaranteed. Don't forget the hyphen. T's and C's apply.
It's the 16th country I've seen them in on this tour jackpot.
The lotto jackpot is €6 million.
Play responsibly in-app, in-store or at lottery.ie. Lotto. Time to play. Estimated jackpot.
That's the sound of time running out. Running out on your chance to save at the Harvey Norman Big Sale. With last chance savings on home appliances ending soon. Get the Bosch 8kg heat pump dryer for just €549, saving you €100. Or get the Neff Slide and Hide Pyrolytic Single Oven for just €879, saving you €190. The Harvey Norman Big Sale. In store and online. Must end soon.
Go! Toyota Hybrid is definitely the way to go.
For me, it was an easy decision. The cost savings of the fuel, the insurance and the car tax, that's the price of a holiday.
From my own setup as a mum, a full tank would last me 5 to 6 weeks, which I just couldn't believe.
With greater fuel economy, driving Toyota Hybrid means real savings.
People just want to know, is it cheaper to run? Which it is, of course.
Join thousands of Irish drivers and switch to a self-charging hybrid today. Toyota, built for a better world.
Centra is on a mission to help you live every day to its fullest. In store at Centra this week, we have some great healthy offers to help you live well.
Like selected Centra fruit and veg, any 3 for €2. Deep River Rock Stillwater 6 bottle pack 500ml, only €2. And our mega deal until Sunday, Centra Irish chicken fillet 680 gram, half price at €4.50.
Log on to centra.ie to find easy workouts, recipe ideas and well-being tips.
Centra, live every day.
Across Ireland on 106 to 108 FM and at newstalk.com. This is Newstalk.
Good evening, I'm Tina Gates. A demonstration's underway in the north to highlight fears over a Brexit hard border. Protesters are building a temporary wall on the old Dublin road between Dundalk and Newry to demonstrate the impact it would have on local communities. Damien McGinnity from Border Communities Against Brexit says comments from the EU Commission this week have increased local concerns.
We're doing this, you see, because ordinary people do not want their community divided, and we're expecting a very big crowd. There's a huge upswell on social media. There's loads of people talking about it. And people, particularly from early this week, when the Commission said that there would have to be a hard border, that's when people suddenly realised, oh goodness, this is getting real serious here.
Over 1,000 people are attending a Beyond Brexit event in Belfast this evening. Speakers include Education Minister Joe McHugh, Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald, Fianna Fáil Deputy Leader Derek O'Leary and SDLP leader Colm Eastwood. The Association of Secondary Teachers in Ireland say they'll stand in solidarity with colleagues in the Irish National Teachers Organisation in a row over equal pay. At a meeting of the Central Executive Council this afternoon, the ASTI signalled their intention to ballot for strike action should the INTO proceed with a ballot. And works are continuing to repair a major leak to a water mains pipe affecting 1,000 people in Dublin too. Regional Operations Manager for Irish Water, John O'Donoghue, says it's a massive operation but should be complete by this evening.
This is quite a substantial leak that we have on the trunk main there coming from the Stillorgan going all the way into the city, and the pipe itself is down quite a distance. It's 2.5 metres to the top of the pipe, so it's quite a major operation. I suppose it's in the middle of a bus lane as well, on the outward bound bus lane on the Stillorgan Road, so there's quite a lot of planning involved, I suppose, and disruption in terms of traffic, but obviously we're most conscious of all the disruption to householders.
That's it for now. We'll have more in an hour.
Newstalk weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors. New store now open in Tala Retail Centre on the Belgard Road. DesKelly.ie.
Rain clearing to sunshine and showers with gusty winds and a risk of hail. Top temperatures of 7 to 10 degrees. Now you're up to date on Newstalk.
Off the ball. This is Newstalk.
You're welcome back to Saturdays Off the Ball. It's Eoin, Dan and Johnny here in studio with you right the way through until 5 o'clock, and plenty coming up in the 5 hours as well. We're going to be playing you a big chunk from our Racing Road show from last Thursday. Before all that, we'll be keeping you up to speed on everything that's happening in the FA Cup, in the Championship and in the Scottish Premiership. In the Scottish Premiership, Celtic have scored the only goal in that division today. They're 1-0 up at home to Hamilton Academical, so it is scoreless still between Aberdeen and Kilmarnock. But it is turning into a fairly interesting afternoon in the Championship because Norwich City are 1-1 with Sheffield United. When we talk about the top of the table here, but the result that sticks out the most this afternoon is Leeds United. They're down 1-0 away to Rotherham United, and Dan, Richie Towell was involved in the goal.
Richie Towell assisted the goal. Now Rotherham are like relegation contenders, and I mean Leeds were top of the table at the start of today, so that would be a shock. I mean we've had a few Leeds pieces on the show, and obviously Leeds are very topical with Spygate and all this, and now Leeds have been involved in some hugely dramatic games with some dramatic finishes this year, so they might well come back and win today. But I think Bielsa's methods, the fear would be a burnout would set in the second half of the season, because they were very demanding in terms of double sessions, and although Norwich, who are up there, their manager would be known for that as well, but Leeds have just become a small bit more flaky in recent weeks. They've dropped a couple of points at times, and it's a really open division at the moment. I mean, in running at the moment, as in with the scores as they are this afternoon, I mean there's basically 12 points between the top sort of 9 teams in the division, and that's with like 17 games to go. So even the likes of Blackburn and Aston Villa further down, if they get a bit of momentum going, it can take them anywhere. So we'll see. I mean, Leeds, they could well come back and win that game. Their form would suggest they've got it in them to do it, but that is one of the stories. And Preston winning 1-0 away at Stoke, we mentioned it earlier. I think Alan Brown's at double figures for the season now as well, so that would be significant for them too, with Sean Maguire, as I mentioned, playing also today.
I'm not going to lie, our eyes were drifting away from the FA Cup towards the Championship because there were a few more interesting storylines. That might not be the case, because what today needs is a good old giant killing, and we're going to go to the Montgomery Waters Meadow. Shane Pennington has got the news of a goal.
It's Shrewsbury Town 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. What a start to the second half from the League One side. Okanabiri picking up the ball in the centre circle, driving towards the Wolves goal. He slipped the ball onto the right hand side of the penalty area, and there was Greg Doherty to fire past John Ruddy into the left hand top corner of the net. It's Shrewsbury Town 1, Wolves 0.
Right, now we're sucking diesel. Now we've got an FA Cup day underway.
It's underway at the Montgomery Waters Meadow. It sounds like
I was watching Football Focus earlier, and it was sad how contrived it felt, like the excitement of the cup. And the guy who was doing the interviews, I forget his name, but he was like nearly every second question was, how great is the FA Cup to the person he was talking to. He was talking to the Portsmouth manager and a few characters around Portsmouth, but it's really sad. Like, Champions League killed the FA Cup star, really, in the sense of the 4 place in the Champions League. And I think some clubs have actually a club policy now of basically ignoring it, because I think financially you're better off finishing 8th compared to 9th in the league than actually the FA Cup isn't worth anything, really.
Well, it's the middle tier clubs that have been a problem, actually. It's not the big clubs. The big clubs are still dominant. Now, actually, I'm looking at it here. I mean, the Wolves side today, they've still played, Ruben Neves, Helder Costa, Matt Doherty, Conor Cody. Okay, they've changed things up a bit, but it's still a strong enough team that they have, and we'll see what they throw at it, because Wolves are exactly the type of club that this year they could have a crack at the FA Cup. They've actually got a great one-off. They only knocked Liverpool out in the previous round, and they took a bit of joy from that, and they have a great sort of one-off record against the better teams. They're safe. They're not going to be Champions League contenders, So
if you have any regard for your fans
season,
as well,
the rest of their season could give Wolves fans like memories,
If you have any regard for your fans, like Wolves fans would genuinely love an FA Cup run, and it's like they love a day out if they happen to get there, and I think that's important as well, like not to lose sight of that.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So that could be one of the big shocks we see today, that they go down to Shrewsbury. It is 1-0 at the moment, and we're into the second halves. Before we move back to the Stephen Kenny story, and Danny wrote a good piece about the granny rule this week, I just want to tell you that Volkswagen, a proud sponsor of Irish Rugby, are celebrating those rugby moments we never tire of, be it a Sexton conversion, the skill of the line-out, or the ball passing the try line. They will be supporting the team as they look to repeat those heroics to secure another Grand Slam victory this year, and to celebrate that, they want to send you and a friend to the opening game against England in the Aviva Stadium next Saturday. To be in with a chance of winning those tickets, all you've got to do is name this Six Nations person who isn't happy with the accusations being thrown at him in the principal's voice.
I don't know what I've said, mate, but if that's the way you want to portray it, then yeah.
To be in with a chance of winning, text us your name and answer to 53106. We'll be picking a finalist to go into the draw before the end of the show, and the overall winner of those tickets will be announced during tomorrow's Off the Ball. It's all with thanks to Volkswagen, a proud sponsor of Irish Rugby. So Dan, as I said, we wanted to come back to your piece during the week in the Independent about the granny rule, in terms of picking up a line. You spoke about self-respect and Irish people perhaps, or Irish football needing to aspire to be better than they currently are. What do you mean by that, if you want to talk about that?
There was a couple of weeks weeks ago, I mean, Mick McCarthy was in town and speaking about the player hunt. And I mean, I understand why he's doing it. I mean, it's an embedded part of our football culture that we do it, and we've used the granny rule for years, or the eligibility rules for years, and everyone's doing it, as people pointed out. Diego Costa and I know that's residency, or there's various people play the rules to get who they want to get. But there was just something that sat a bit uncomfortably about, okay, we're in one fell swoop, we're now making a play for Bamford, for Patrick Bamford, for Nathan Redmond and for Will Keane, all of whom have turned down Ireland before, and some cases maybe more than one occasion, or they've rejected calls, or maybe they knew the rules that they could only switch once, and I appreciate that. But I think maybe off the back of the Declan Rice thing, and we're now seeing that the other side of the eligibility rules and how it can play for you, I think it does sort of devalue things a small bit when we're maybe in one go trying to get in as many as we can, to help us. I know it's in particularly in attacking areas. I know we're light there. I know the argument would be that, if Ireland qualify for a tournament, that's worth more to the game than anything. But I know there will be players, you think of the likes of, say, Patrick Hoban, who had a great season with Dundalk last year, and I mentioned Killian Sheridan, I mentioned Adam Rooney, who's the ship has possibly sailed for him. He's gone from Aberdeen to Salford. But it does feel sometimes that we're more likely to throw a fella in for a cap that is outside qualified, rather than the player, the homegrown player that you can almost take for granted they're going to be there all along, and there's a process of trying to recruit someone to get them on board as an option. Well, then you almost feel like you have to bring them in. I mentioned Will Keane, for example, who's Michael Keane's twin brother now. Very talented player, Will Keane. But in his younger days, and the irony is he didn't play for Ireland when he was younger because he basically was deemed to be too good for it. And Michael Keane actually came over and tried to play. He came over to play for Ireland, I think at under 19 level, under 17, under 19 level, maybe both even. And then England came calling, and he sort of followed his heart, and he went there, and he could never switch back because Will Keane never even played for Ireland when he was younger, and he was in the England setup. Well, then that's left him open to switch at a later date. In his entire senior career, he's 26 now. I think he scored 6 goals, maybe a 7th goal, maybe in a cup match or something like that. And I just feel that someone with those qualifications, you feel like they need to do something amazing to get a call up, to go in an amazing, and then maybe then you sit back and you consider it. Whereas just something about like reaching around, getting at lads of any kind to get them in, to have a look at them, let's get them qualified. I just think it's what we've always done, but I just wonder, do we reach a point where we have to say, listen, maybe at a certain age we need someone to be committed at this point. That's fine if you've made a decision in 2021. I'm not saying you could be closed-minded to playing the rules that are there, of course not. But I think when people it feels it's so blatantly like they're 25, 26 and, well, this is all I've got.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't. And I had no problem with it before, but I maybe it's just I'm coloured from speaking to people who maybe would be around the scene otherwise. It's one thing going after a superstar. I can sort of appreciate when that happens, but we're very unlikely to get superstars through the eligibility rules now because England's plight is so desperate, and we've seen what happens with a Declan Rice then that comes along. So I don't know. I think I'd feel happier with a focus on people who've been there the whole time and it's their dream and they've aspired to it, rather than just blatantly trawling around for anyone you can get. It doesn't maybe sit so comfortably now.
I'd be interested to get your take on this, Kevin. I hope the PA system has quietened down a small bit at the Den. What do you reckon?
Do you know what? You might as well just put a tape recorder and record exactly what Dan said there. We share exactly the same views with Dan and what he's saying. I can't get on board with someone like Will Keane jumping on a bandwagon now because he can't get a call up for England when he was a superstar as a youngster. We know that when he was playing at Man United, he's had a lot of injury troubles. But I don't feel comfortable about just calling somebody up like that. I wouldn't feel comfortable about calling Declan Rice up now. I wouldn't. I don't feel comfortable about it because they've shown the true colours in my eyes, and that's the way that I feel about it. It's the same with Nathan Redmond as well. He's played for England. He's capped by England. He's an English international. He's not Irish, as far as I'm concerned. He's not. I understand he's got close links, family-wise, to the country, but it's meaningless to me once you've committed yourself, once you've shown who you want to play for. As Dan maybe touched on there, where your dream is, where you see yourself when the country's national anthem's playing. I understand a lot don't share that view, but that's the way I feel on it, and I can't jump on board with calling these lads up for the sake of calling them up because we've got nobody else.
Are you honestly saying though, Kev, that if Rice were now going to decide, yeah, I'm going to play for Ireland, you wouldn't be happy with that?
I wouldn't be happy with it, Johnny. No, not unless there's a serious message or a serious answer that he's given as to why he has played 3 times and then all of a sudden had to think about playing for us. You don't think about playing for Ireland, Johnny. That's the way I feel. I'm sorry, but I can't get on board with that.
I would differ from Kev on Rice because in my view he came in at underage level. He integrated. If he stays now, it's because of that experience and I think and a degree of loyalty aspiring from that. I think he's slightly different, in my view, from someone at 26 who has shown no inclination until that point. I would draw a distinction between. I know that we may have players playing who would have been tempted in another way, because that's the reality of people grow up sometimes with that dual identity to a degree. But my issue would be more so with the lads coming in very, very much later in the day, whereas Rice has been coming over to play for Ireland, and apparently his attitude has been very good about that from a very young age.
On Declan Rice, Kev, I guess the situation is he's getting cold feet, not just about Ireland, but also about England. He hasn't committed to England yet either. So should England football fans look at Declan Rice and say he hasn't followed his heart all the time here in terms of being English, so therefore we shouldn't support him?
No, but that's not the point, though, is it? Because he's turned down a call-up. He's played 3 times at senior international level, numerous times at underage level. He's committed, and then all of a sudden, there's a loophole there, so that loophole can actually lead you to say, "Hang on a minute, I need to rethink my future here." You've made your commitment, or you have committed, and you've made your decision. That's it. Why do you need to reconsider that decision? And there's loads of lads that don't share my view on this one, but I can't get my head around it. Now, I understand he's said that he's a young man that needs to sort out his club future and he's sort out his contract. And I said earlier on, fair play to him on that one, because I admire him for actually saying these lads are earning X amount. I want something similar to what the rest of the squad's getting, because he deserves it. He's that good. But as far as I'm concerned, he's played 3 times and then reconsidered, or he said that he's got a decision to make because Gareth Southgate has picked up the phone. Someone else picks up the phone. If you've got eligibility for somebody else and they pick up the phone to you and you think, yeah, okay, I've had my head turned by whoever, you're eligible for Germany or Brazil, or because you're showing that sort of potential but you've already committed to one country. Nah, I'm sorry, I can't get on board with it. I really, really can't. And unless he comes in and says, look, I wasn't happy with certain things under the last regime, I wasn't happy with something that led me to this decision that was internal, that's something that was happening within the squad, then I would say, yeah, okay, maybe I'll accept that. If that message is not coming out and his decision was clearly off the back of a phone call off Gareth Southgate having your head turned, no, I wouldn't pick him.
So if some sort of dispute, and there's no suggestion that this is actually the case, but if some sort of dispute was the reason why Declan Rice decided to postpone his decision about Ireland, you'd be okay with that in terms of him going back on board?
I'd want it clear. Clear. He's 20 now. He was 19. He's a young man. Yes, he's a young man. We all make decisions that we probably regret when we get a little bit older. But he's not a 14-year-old man. You know your own mind when you're at that age. When you're 18 and 19, you know your own mind. Yes, I understand that you've got to become a lot more wiser to the world and things like this, and you've got to actually make different decisions, or you will make different decisions that you would make when you're a little bit younger. But this is different. It's entirely different.
So do you subscribe to the idea at all that, I guess, it is quite a cynical thing, I will admit, Kev, that, we can judge the likes of Will Keane on one level, but we can judge players of a higher quality, but in the same situation on a different level? Because ultimately, I think, speaking for myself here, my view would change on a lot of players if, say, Nathan Redmond came in and scored a winning goal that'd get us qualified for the next Euros.
Yeah, but I understand that's a lot of people's mindset, and I'll take it, and I'll shake every Irishman's hand that pulls on the shirt. But I can't agree in any way, shape or form with that rule that allows you to play for one country and go on to play for another, and allows you to switch allegiances to suit your needs, essentially, because that's all it's doing. You're changing allegiances to suit your needs, and I can't. Of course, if he's wearing the shirt, of course I'll support him. Of course I want the team to do well. Mick McCarthy or Stephen Kenny, whoever's managing these players down the line, and we get to a major championship, of course I'm going to support the team. That's who I am. But I don't like it. I don't like it. Of course I don't like it in any way.
Yeah, a bit of reaction to this. Someone's in touch to say when Mark Noble turned us down because he didn't feel Irish, I thought that was really refreshing to hear. He said, I can't take a place of someone who wants it more instead of taking easy caps. And someone else is in touch to say, I agree with Kevin. If he was consistently being capped by England, would he want to change? No. It is all to put himself in the shop window and raise his profile. Internationals make more in the transfer market. It is simple as that. I presume that's in relation
as well. We've had a lot of players that have done that. They've been eligible for us. Mark Noble being one. Total admiration for him. I wouldn't have appreciated, because I was part of that squad when he was initially being talked about coming in. I wouldn't have appreciated him coming in, even though he played underage football for England. I wouldn't have done. Much the same was Dave Kitson. He could have played for us at some stage as well in his career. And he said, "Look, I'm not Irish. Why would I want to play for them?" Total admiration for that. That's the views. Thank you very much. They don't want to play for us. No problems at all. You move on with it. That's the way it should be in my mind. That's the way it is.
I just think that, and I'm not sure. Again, I'm speculating with Rice, but I think the idea of nationality is very much, different strokes for different blokes. Like it's like Rice maybe mildly ambivalent about where he stands in terms of feeling Irish or English. And I think it's just Kev's way of looking at it. I think in terms of a hardcore love of his country, I think it's probably becoming anachronistic a bit at this stage, especially with professional footballers. And you obviously know that yourself, Kev.
And Kev just seems so kind, just at the crucial point.
I'd beaten him so easily in the argument, I just decided that he'd turn off his mic. But no, I mean, I sincerely hope Rice is not in any way swayed by the views that Kevin is expressing, because it's very, very badly want him to play for Ireland. I think he could be a massive player for us for 10, 15 years. And I honestly couldn't give a damn about the procrastination. I just hope he makes a decision, but I'd say I'd welcome him with open arms any day of the week.
Yeah, well, I'd be very comfortable with Declan Rice playing for Ireland and coming back to play for Ireland. Absolutely fine with that.
So the crowd.
One or two of the other names mentioned.
I get you on that.
You would be slightly, you'd be slightly uneasy, but I mean, they always win you over. I mean, like Clinton Morrison is welcomed back, in Ireland, as he's a beloved figure, and he played a very public game of sort of flirtation with England at the time. So it happens, and we've done it before, and we all sometimes sort of apply short memories when it suits us.
Yeah.
But I just think in some ways you want a player to be really, really worth it to break things up. And I think that's why, Kenny's attitude to this, it's going to be interesting to see, does it hold? Because naturally, particularly at senior level, there's a real pressure. And
that's the question, really.
If you suddenly have the 24-year-old, say the Scott Hogan type, there's another player I mentioned that actually, Scott Hogan just came along when he was at Brentford, albeit having played for Ireland before, but at one level. But then it was very clear from the Hogan side of things that there was people in his camp pushing him towards England as the next Vardy. And ironically enough now, we possibly, Sean Maguire might be a more complete all-round player than Scott Hogan, but we were fixated on Hogan at that time. God, we have to get him. And if that sort of player comes along, that late developing player out of nowhere, what would Kenny's approach be to it if he desperately needs a striker? That's a massive test. It's a massive test of.
I do think Kenny's MO, though, judging from his comments during the week, will be not entirely separate from what Kevin Kilbane's is, in terms of you want to be part of our setup, and I'm not going to go pleading with players to come over here. Now, as Dan said, he's not against the idea, but Kenny will be very, very strong in that. And it'll be very much, we're in this together, and we're going to do what's best for Irish football going forward. But this is going to be very much a cohesive thing from the top, anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Just a couple of things to tell you about in the FA Cup. Middlesbrough have gone 1-0 up at home to Newport County, and it's 2-1 now in the game between Swansea and Gillingham. They're the only score changes, except for in the two all-Premier League clashes. Let's go to St James's Park first, because there's been a goal there. Here's Lee Stott.
It's Newcastle United 0, Watford 1. The goal has come from Andre Gray. A wicked finish after a good ball was trickled into the box by Will Hughes. The two had combined a little earlier to almost same effect, and so possibly this goal has been coming for Watford, who've changed their shape, and it has reaped rewards for them. It's Newcastle United 0, Watford 1.
Now, in the last few moments, Manchester City had gone 2-0 up at home to Burnley, but there has been a third goal at the Etihad Stadium. Here's Darren Stanage.
Manchester City 3, Burnley 0. City making easy work of the start of the second half here, scoring twice in 15 minutes. First of all, on 51 minutes, Bernardo Silva, he had the ball on the right-hand side into the area, had a shot, it was deflected, wrong-footed the goalkeeper Pope, he couldn't keep it out. De Bruyne went close on 55, Jesus with a shot parried away, and then Kevin De Bruyne from 20 yards fired in the third. It could have been different had Vidra in on goal for Burnley after Robin Otamendi scored, but he hit the side netting. City 3, Burnley 0.
Yeah, in the Championship then, it's Aston Villa 2, Ipswich Town 0, Blackburn Rovers are 2-0 up at home to Hull City. It's Norwich City 2, Sheffield United 1, Nottingham Forest 2, Wigan Athletic 1. Big goal is at Rotherham United because Leeds United have equalised. It's 1-1 and it's Stoke City 0, Preston North End 1. Celtic are still 1-0 up at home to Hamilton and it's still scoreless in the other game near the top of the Scottish Premiership. It's Aberdeen 0, Kilmarnock 0. We hope to re-establish Kevin Kilbane's line maybe once more before 5 o'clock because we did want to talk to him briefly about Thierry Henry, of course, sacked as Monaco manager this week. Any sympathy?
Oh, no, not at all really, to be honest, but yeah, it's sort of surprising. He was linked with the Aston Villa job at one point as well, Henry, and the chain of events where he was like suspended, and it just seems like he it turned very sour sort of very quickly there. And I mean, they were like struggling really badly, and I think they've brought back Jardim. I think so. They obviously had someone lined up to replace him pretty quickly. But yeah, I don't have a huge amount of sympathy for him, not really, to be honest.
He was never somebody who appealed to me as a prospective manager, and I know.
Why is that? Is that because of his punditry?
Yeah, it's just the way he spoke about the game. It's
not his first language though when he was doing punditry.
True, but it's that's quite flimsy, like obviously to say that. But I remember we'd Richard Dunn on.
Well, bloody poor, like you know.
Yeah, we'd Richard Dunn on when Monaco were playing. They could have been playing PSG. Earlier in the season, anyway, Richard Dunn, I remember we were talking that night about it, and I was asking him, did he feel that he had managerial credentials? And I think he gave a fairly diplomatic answer, but there was nothing about Henry's TV performances that suggested, oh yeah, he's going to make a good manager. And his reputation is quite badly damaged by this because I think they won like 5 games for in his entire duration that he was there, and they hockeyed 5-1 in his last game at home. Yeah, so I wouldn't have much sympathy for him either.
It's quite a weird situation that we're in these days, that we've got a very small sample size of the punditry into managerial path. So Gary Neville, great pundit, disastrous stint at Valencia. Henry, bad pundit, clearly not a great stint at Monaco. So there's no true signs that being a bad pundit will make you a good manager, or vice versa.
A small sample size here, I think.
Exactly.
Souness is now like arguably the top dog pundit. Well, what's his? But it's after being a manager, you know.
Is it fair that we're judging these guys on their punditry and actually kind of casting aspersions on how good or otherwise they're going to be as a manager?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I have to admit, like, I wouldn't be massively sort of saying, well, someone did this as a pundit, and how does this mean they're going to perform as a manager? Because I mean, you're talking about two dramatically different cases there, where Henry wasn't, you didn't learn a huge amount off Henry. You would learn a lot off Neville, and then both of them struggled. So I mean, there's it's not as if the two examples run in tandem there. I mean, I think with Henry, you just get the impression from across his career that Henry was probably a fairly self-centered individual who, and that's what is probably his, in some ways, like that's what the great strikers sometimes need to be, able to
handle the ball as well.
Well, yeah, but they need to have a certain streak about them. But maybe can they translate that to management and to actually to bring improvement out of others? Because obviously Henry, he had highs and lows in his career. He was, whatever about 2009. I mean, that 2010 French team was poisonous. The atmosphere, and Henry didn't necessarily come out of that well. I think his popularity in France was always, not exactly a beloved figure there. And clearly there was aspects of his personality that didn't hugely appeal to people. And maybe it's just that his personality was not suited to his management. It's nothing related to his punditry. But there's no real sense of sympathy for Henry here at all. I mean,
no, we're all laughing at him.
I remember speaking to people who used to cover like Arsenal in London and stuff, and they always used to say, if Henry comes into a mix-up, he'll be very good just once you ask him questions about himself. He'll be grand on that.
Right.
That's a topic that he'll be more than willing to speak on, and even some of the stuff in the aftermath of the handball. I've no real problem with him committing the handball at all. My issue with Henry was always the bloody ridiculous PR-driven offer to maybe they should get a replay.
Yeah.
You know, the day after, and sitting down on the pitch with Richard Dunn.
Yeah.
That was the thing. The actual offence, doing what he wanted for his team to win. Yeah, that was fine. Like, you know, our lads would have done that, but it was the absolute attempt afterwards to try and present himself as this diplomatic figure, which didn't tally with anything you were hearing about.
Or the fact that he's such a self-centred individual, the fact that he became a villain temporarily just added another layer to the mystique of Thierry Henry. It was this new elements to the character.
Of course, if he were to appear on News Talk, all of this would be forgiven and we'd be fawning over him for an hour or two, you know, but...
Maybe not you.
Yeah, we'd be talking about rugby.
Let's go back to the Montgomery Waters Meadow because we may have a giant.
What a name that
Here's Shane Pennington.
It's Shrewsbury Town 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0, and Luke Waterfall has headed the Shrews into dreamland here. It came from a corner kick, Ollie Norburn with a right-footed corner into the area, and there was Waterfall 6 yards out to put the ball in the back of the net. It's Shrewsbury Town 2, Wolves 0.
Yeah, Luke Waterfall putting them 2-0 up.
Don't go chasing Waterfall, the man was told.
I'm sure he was celebrating on his own because his teammates were told him that. Greg Docherty was the person who put them 1-0 up, so it could turn into a very famous afternoon for Shrewsbury Town. Just to finish up on Thierry Henry, the last thing that kind of makes me curious about this, the first thing was obviously the punditry into management element of this, but also the failure into the next part of your career element of all of this. Is this it now? Thierry Henry's just done as a manager, or he has to really drop down to...
Probably model stuff, model cars or something, or do ads on TV or something like that.
But does one failure a career make?
Well, he won't be
especially your first one.
I doubt he'll go back
Where
to
do
Sky.
you think he'll go? No.
You know, he can... Henry will still go to China or the MLS or somewhere.
Yeah.
Definitely. He could manage in the MLS or something, I'd say. Mm. Oh, definitely. I mean, like he's still like an amazing name, you know. Like, but that was the curiosity. I think we did a piece around the time when he went back to France or like to Monaco. Was he trying to almost rehabilitate his reputation there in some way, which was sort of damaged a bit by how it ended in terms of his international career, and he's failed miserably in that. So maybe he is someone who's going to have to go elsewhere to be recognised. I mean, who knows? I mean, you know, he could just maybe Arsenal need an interim manager at some stage. And he could go in there and win his first 8 matches, and it's like he understands the fabric of the club. This is where his future should be. But I'm sure he'll be okay. You know, I doubt he'll go back
I don't
to
feel
Sky.
sorry for Thierry Henry.
No, I don't go back to Sky. I think there was always this feeling that whoever, you know, gave him the big deal at Sky, they maybe hadn't thought it through, and it suited them that, you know, he went off and pursued management dreams, but
he won't be
China or America or somewhere. You know, maybe he might manage Qatar or something.
Yeah, he won't be cobbling money together tonight to get his dinner tomorrow. Anyway, he'll be okay.
No, he'll be okay. Our scoring will not affect him too dramatically, I don't think.
He reacts to News Talk scoring, you know. Yeah. Who are these guys?
I see the headline on the Daily Mail already. Let's talk Chelsea because it's been an interesting enough 7 days for them at this point. Maurizio Sarri, of course, calling out Eden Hazard and pretty much the entire Chelsea dressing room. And the idea of whether or not it's right to call out your players in the media has been discussed at length this week. But I think we're actually forgetting the nuts and bolts of what Maurizio Sarri has actually said publicly. Let's forget the fact that he said it publicly. He said that Eden Hazard has not reached his potential. Like, he said other things as well. But ultimately, does Sarri have a point here that Eden Hazard is simply a player who had the ability to become one of the greatest players in Europe and has somewhat squandered that ability and is just residing in that kind of just outside the top 10 players in Europe consistently, or maybe just inside?
It's like he's one of the lads that he's been working with the Chelsea players for a period of time, and he's had stuff he's always wanted to say. And it's like it's like he's had a couple at the Christmas party, and all of a sudden the truth just starts coming out.
Like Ned Flanders when he finally capitulates, and just everyone's
he's just realised, like these Chelsea players, they're just an absolute disgrace. Like, and this is I'm saying it. I mean, but even the fact that it was calculated. I know that there's separate things he said, but you know that even the initial one last week, where he said, I want to speak in Italian because I want my message to be clear.
Then you know it's going to get real.
Then you know it's going to be serious. It was almost a bit like, you know, sometimes when Trapp went into full Italian, it was like, oh, this is good. This could be good.
What was that like in a press conference? Presumably terrifying.
We never got the full. No, Trafford was always charming. You know, it was often more terrifying trying to decipher what he said in English, because it was more terrifying to realise that the following day there's going to be 5 different versions of his quotes in 5 different newspapers, all saying different things, and like all of them in good faith acted in the way that they wanted to. But there were times when he went, when he was speaking in Italian very clearly, or also as well when we would have played in the major tournaments, say, so he would have been speaking in Italian and then it was coming through the translation system, and you'd be like, oh, this is definitely a little bit more hard hitting sometimes than it might have been when he tried to do it in English himself, because naturally he was just trying to, it wasn't a natural language for him. But Sarri clearly had to think about this. I don't think it was one of these. I know it was, it can be after a game, but I think if you start talking about Eden Hazard and talking about the character of players, you got to think this is a play here. Now, I think we spoke about with Pat Nevin the other day, and the assumption is that he's speaking to the players. But I wonder sometimes as well when someone does this, and there's always this feeling that managers are speaking to players when they do this stuff, and we always take it that way. But sometimes are they still trying to speak to owners and trying to speak to the public and say, listen, there's only so much I can do with these characters. Look at their track record of underperformance and trying to maybe plant a seed out there that it's not him.
Well, Sarri said he's probably going to be sacked this time next year anyway, so he's kind of taken that element of peril away from the situation.
That's the Chelsea job. It's like a Chelsea gig is always a couple of years and a payoff at the end of it. It's like a really nice sort of Erasmus period for someone. It's a lengthy Erasmus period with a payoff at the end of it, and you can try to make the best of it and learn and do what you can from the whole experience, but you sort of know how that there's a shelf life on the whole thing.
The Higuain one is interesting as well, because they obviously have a good relationship from the Napoli days, and he's like, I know what I'm going to get from you, because he's kind of like, he's a bit of a dream in terms of his interviews. Like he's incredibly candid at times and obviously pointed, and it's that Hazard thing is Hazard's response, his comments and response would suggest that relationship is very, very fractured, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, because Higuain to me looks like a player that's probably edging a little bit towards being past it maybe, but at least he knows that he's going to get with him.
I think Hazard should probably look to go this summer. I still think for him it would be a sense of unfulfilled career if at one point he didn't try and play for, Madrid is always the name that's come around. Like, there is an element that he's done all he's going to do at Chelsea realistically. They're not going to emerge, I don't think, next season as a Champions League force again, or I think there is a sense that for his career, because in the World Cup in the summer, you look at him, the pleasure of seeing him in the flesh a couple of times, and he is one of the top players. Like when he is in full flight, and he actually performed in that World Cup, even when Belgium went out, he sort of, he didn't shirk it. So for the sake of his, I know there was talk this week he's thinking about maybe he might stay at Chelsea. I don't know, is that part of some political game that they're playing out through the press, but I think for his sake he should be looking to go. He should definitely get out of there.
Let's go back and get an update from the greatest stadium of them all, Montgomery Waters Meadow. There's been another goal, Shane Pennington.
Shrewsbury Town 2, Wolves 1. Wolves back into this game courtesy of Raul Jimenez, who's provided by another one of the substitutions made by the Wolves in the second half. It came from Ivan Cavallero down the right hand side with his cross, and there was Jimenez 12 yards out to fire beyond Steve Arnold. It's Shrewsbury 2, Wolves 1.
Should be said, I've just looked this up actually. It's been long known as the New Meadow, but local firm Montgomery Waters took on a sponsorship, so the great name is actually just another ground being named after some business.
A great name is a great name as far as I'm concerned. I'm happy to go along and kind of feed into the grotesque capitalism of Montgomery Waters Meadow.
Yeah, I don't know.
You think it just kills the magic of the cup?
Even if it's a quaint name.
Quaint name, Montgomery Waters Meadow. No, it's nice, but ultimately, what are Montgomery Waters like? Yeah. Do they say now in Shrewsbury, we're going to the Montgomery at the weekend, or we're going to the Montgomery Waters?
Like
that head wrecking, we're going to the Aviva. Like, we're not going to the Aviva. You're going to the Aviva Stadium, or you're going to Lansdowne Road. Like, just think about how ridiculous it is to say we're going to the insurance company.
Well, okay, I do think most people do say the Aviva.
It is. It's so annoying. Like, it's Lansdowne Road, and people should remember that it's still there. It's still that grass. It's still Lansdowne Road. It's on Lansdowne Road. And just because some company came in to pay a load of money to get their names in it, it's still Lansdowne Road.
So what would you call, if you're going to the Arsenal home ground, where would you say you're going?
Well, that was never called anything else, though.
Yeah, but it's still the same process of giving.
Yeah, but like it's not like it's like if you like. I would still kind of call Terryland Park, even though officially it's named after Eamon Deasy, who was a club legend. But it's still Terryland Park because it's in Terryland, and that was the name of the ground. Like the Emirates is obviously a different one.
Did you ever refer to Hunky Dory's Park when Drogheda was so named?
I probably did, yeah. I had a soft spot for Hunky Dory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there you go.
Especially when you're...
He loves Chris, but he hates insurance. He's strong on those things.
A couple of the other score changes in the FA Cup. City are now 4-0 up against Burnley, and it's 3-1 between Swansea and Gillingham at the moment. In terms of any of the other score lines, that's pretty much it in terms of score changes. The big one that we are watching there is at the Montgomery Waters, the Mont. Shrewsbury Town are 2-1 up against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Regarding your Henry story, says a texter, which position makes the best manager post their playing career? That is an interesting question. So what position do you have to have played?
The strikers, you're thinking of the great strikers, but again, I'm thinking more of the English ones or English-based ones of recent times, and the likes of Shearer and people like that didn't necessarily go into it. Mark Hughes obviously had a reasonable stab at it, but I don't know. You always assume it's going to be like captains and it's going to be the central players, but then Roy Keane hasn't exactly cracked it as a manager, really, has he?
No, the big kind of counter-argument to the striker thing is potentially Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
He is now in vogue. His time, everything else he's done in his managerial career is completely forgotten.
Yeah. He didn't have a managerial career.
Didn't have one before.
Just a hell of a lot of the really good managers were pretty average footballers, and Stephen Kenny would probably count himself among that, but obviously Alex Ferguson.
He was a striker.
He was a striker. Mourinho. Wenger.
Brian Clough is a striker too.
Brian Clough
was strikers of recent times. Maybe.
Brian Clough was probably a very good player. He just suffered a horrific injury. But you do get the notion that it would be a defender or a holding midfielder or a captain, that type of player, because the striker is just too selfish.
I'm not sure. I think it's me who's taking the heat here from Richard O'Monaghan. Gary Neville, a good pundit. Would you wise up, you idiot? So there's my take on Gary Neville.
I'm with Gary.
I'm with Gary.
Gary Neville he's a decent pundit, but again, I think for a lot of those English managers, in fairness, going abroad, it's very different culturally, and you can't automatically say Gary Neville is definitely a bad manager because of one experience. Yeah. If he managed in his homeland, it might be slightly different.
Yeah.
Paul has been in touch to say hi. I totally agree with Kevin and Daniel. Real football people are fed up with the granny rule. Our players will never progress if they don't get the chance. Real football people, not Johnny Ward, etc., who want short-term results.
Yeah, but
Rugby's Johnny Ward, isn't it?
I was obviously brought up thinking
doesn't like these slick corporate entities, but he's gone to Leinster last night. Yeah,
Italia 90 and obviously those days, the granny rule was amazing for us in those days.
But it's very different. The rules were different then. And that's the interesting thing. I mean, we had players who picked Ireland that may have checked out if they'd had the opportunity. And not to be unkind to them because they did very well, but someone like Mark Lawrence was actually snapped up at a time when he was a low-profile player, and England relaxed then. The famous stories about and Scotland, where Jack Charlton goes to the game, the Oxford game, and picks up Houghton as well as Aldridge. But he was able to get a player who would be the top scorer in the Division 1 to play for Ireland. That's not available now through it. And if there's a massive gulf between the players we're recruiting and the players they're being picked ahead of, that's fine. But that's probably not the case in some of these cases here. And for the sake of someone who's a sort of a 2-3%, 5% better player, who may not necessarily be wholly committed to the whole thing, I think it might level itself out.
The likes of Nathan Redmond come in or that.
Redmond, of course, would add something. He's a Premier League player.
It's not like he would play with 1% less, investment and emotion for Ireland than he otherwise would if he were playing for anyone else.
I think that.
I don't think it's still a game of football.
This is something that's been. I'm not naming names, but it's certainly something that you would chat to people who've been around Ireland squads, and there would be certain characters that one of the things that would be said about them would be, it never seemed like to be all and end all for them. So if they occasionally miss a couple of games with injury or whatever it might be, I'm sorry, but that is a thing.
Who was that, Roy Keane?
That is a thing. No. We're talking in more recent terms. But
as long as you know the character involved, the idea of nationality is far too fluid for me to get too bogged down in it. And Kevin, I still think he just comes from an era of being Irish in brought up in the north of England, where he just sees things completely differently.
Well, the idea of nationality being fluid is your view, and that's the crucial point, is that everybody's got a different view on nationality.
Exactly.
So I guess by definition that probably is.
I mean,
it's not the correct one.
I think people forget that like a lot of countries in the world did not exist 150, 200 years ago. In the history of man, nationalism is a very, very short-lived thing, and we need, like, it's not as fluid as, oh, I'm Irish or I'm English. It's not as straightforward as that. There's a lot of different views out there.
Sean has been in touch to say, guys, it's pretty effing disgraceful what you've all just agreed, that it's okay to cheat if it helps your country win a football match. Guess you don't have a problem with Lance Armstrong then, or is cheating only okay if it's for your country?
I think what Henry did, there's no way I could ever do that in a football pitch, because it was so dishonest, and I would have just gone up to the referee and said straight away, like, I'm basically call off this game or at least cancel that goal because I handled the ball.
Would you have done that?
Yeah. Absolutely. If I handled it as blatantly as that.
Or to Monday now to see what happens if Johnny gets any marginal gain.
But the hollow nonsense of the sitting on the pitch with Richard Dunne afterwards, who is everything that Henry isn't. Like, Richard Dunne is such a good character by all accounts, such a loyal player for Ireland, and such a warrior, and that just made me.
But I think the point is that I don't think, for all the warrior and characters, I don't think the Irish players that night would have owned up to that offence either. That's all. I
don't think anyone would have done it.
I don't think professionally, like other pros, really would have taken issue with Henry over what he did. Well, the anger is more so directed at the officialdom and people for not seeing it. But it was the insincere stuff afterwards.
Let's compare what Henry did to Suarez did to what Solskjaer did, which were like when he committed that foul when the guy was through one-on-one, he just took him down, got a red card. Really, really cynical professional fouls. But like what Henry did versus what, say, Suarez did, I'd have an awful lot more sympathy for Suarez, because he was just like, I want my team to win this game.
Yeah, there's been a big reaction to our discussion about the Montgomery Waters Meadow. Shrewsbury are still 2-1 up against Wolves. John says, take her up to Monto. Someone else has been in touch to ask, would a packed stadium in Shrewsbury be called a full Monty? And Joe says, about Shrewsbury Town's ground, the locals call it the Meta. So that's an interesting fact.
Yeah, Meta. So that wouldn't be surprising.
Manchester City have gone 5-0 up against Burnley. We may as well get the story of this goal. Here's Darren Stanage. He's got the report of Manchester City against Burnley.
Manchester City 5, Burnley 0. Penalty from Sergio Aguero, the substitute. It was taken after Mahrez was fouled. Mix up between goalkeeper and defender for Burnley. Defender fouled the City man, and up stepped Aguero to knock the ball home. It's City 5, Burnley 0.
There's been a goal for Forest.
Yeah, Nottingham Forest 3-1 up now. So Guardiola scored, one of the three holding midfielders we referenced earlier on. So maybe O'Neill will be cheered off the park after a 3-1 win, because Wigan are an okay side. So Leeds have also gone 2-1 up as well. So the drama of Leeds from 1-0 down away to Rotherham to lead 2-1 with 3 minutes to go, and Norwich Sheffield United is 2-2. So it's all coming good for Leeds today after all.
Let's get a preview from our late game in the FA Cup today, or the later game at 5:30. There is, of course, a 7:45 game between Wimbledon and West Ham, but at 5:30 we've got Millwall against Everton at the Den. Will Esler has got the preview.
Millwall host Everton at the Den, and they've a good record here against Premier League teams. They've won their last 4 FA Cup home games against top flight sides, but Everton are unbeaten in their last 3 visits here. A cup run for them might settle some of the voices of discontent in Marco Silva's time in charge. They've lost 5 of their last 7 Premier League games, 5 times winners of the cup, but their last success was back in 1995. At the Den, it's Millwall versus Everton.
Den, that's a proper football ground name. We're going to the Den.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't get taken over by Montgomery Waters.
Do you remember? Do you remember when
taken over by Lions Tea? Then it'd be like the Lions Den.
Oh, jeez.
That would be the perfect branding. Why haven't they thought of this? You know.
Do you remember when the Newcastle owner Mike Ashley tried to rename St James's Park, and the reaction from the Newcastle fans, albeit they didn't like Ashley anyway, was exactly how clubs fans should react to that. I know it brings in money, but I just think it's so horribly commercial to forego such a traditional name for at the behest of some sort of corporation.
No James McCarthy in the Everton squad for that game against Millwall today, Dan.
Yeah, that's interesting, because Marco Silva during the week suggested that he might get some minutes, that he was back fit. So I'd be surprised now. I mean, McCarthy I mentioned him in the piece in the paper today. He's someone now that just needs to become a footballer again and get out and play, because he hasn't played in a long time. And if Declan Rice doesn't opt to play for Ireland, then James McCarthy is the best, is the next best probably defensive midfielder, the player to play that position if he's fully fit. So if he goes and plays games of some talk, even a West Brom, even if it involves dropping to the Championship, he just needs to go and play, because otherwise, he's 29 later this year, so he's lost a rump of his career, and he needs to sort of come back and try and finish and make the best of whatever time he has left there.
I am looking forward to debate on the Irish squad and the potential team we could have if Rice did declare, and if one or two young players progress, we actually could have a pretty damn decent team from the situation where we're at the lowest ebb in my lifetime in Irish football, from the O'Neill regime. If the likes of O'Dowda comes on, and if Obafemi progresses, and if Rice were to declare, these are all three big ifs. Like, we have the makings of a pretty decent team, because I think from the back four up, or back four and keeper, no problems there.
Passable, yeah.
Yeah, it's
more
right.
Passable.
I think our back four will do very well under Mick.
Yeah, I think so too. There's been another goal at St James's Park. It's Newcastle against Watford. Here's Lee Stott.
It's Newcastle United 0, Watford 2. A goal in the 90th minute from Isaac's Success. Good work on the left from Domingos Quina. Put him in. He was able to tap home. And Watford are going through to round 5. It's Newcastle 0, Watford 2.
Just one other stat on Everton there before we leave them. The record, I'm not sure if you saw this week. This was on the BBC 5 Live Twitter account. After 23 games at Everton, Marco Silva has 30 points and 8 wins, scored 34 goals, conceded 33. Sam Allardyce, after 23 games, 34 points and 9 wins, scored 26, conceded 27. So they've scored more and conceded more, but crucially Sam Allardyce has made a better 23-game start to his Everton career than Marco Silva has.
I suspect Sam will be repeating this point.
I'm sure he already has.
Over some socialising somewhere with some people, he likes to entertain people. He'll be telling people this.
Yeah,
he's always on top of his stats.
Hopefully they're not working for a newspaper, but
Silva's in bother. He is definitely in bother.
Allardyce is a very underrated manager, I think. Just because his style of football isn't great, he does get results, in fairness, wherever he goes. Yeah, and Silva, they look pretty rudderless at times this season. Like, defensively, they don't seem to know what they're at.
Do you think that the hype was completely overblown with Marco Silva? Clearly he was overhyped a little bit, given his current record at the moment. But is he a complete... I've seen people refer to him as fish oil salesman and all that sort of stuff. I think that's very harsh.
It seems a bit far. He clearly had something about him to win the respect that he did in the first place. I suppose he got his head turned when he was at Watford, and maybe at Watford history would suggest that no one's going to stay too long, so the right thing to do is to be looking at your options. Although they seem to have enjoyed revelling in some of his Everton misfortune. I think wasn't there some tweet or something from Watford. So his early work at Hull seemed pretty impressive in the circumstances, and you almost felt like you were rooting for him a bit, because he dealt with a bit of that sort of, wasn't it? Phil Thompson and a couple of others was completely disdainful of the fact, and actually there was Gary Rowett was being put forward, and he's someone whose stock has suffered a lot, but there was positive discussions about Everton only 2 or 3 months ago and what Silva was doing there. I think Jamie Carragher, even recently, who obviously would be on the ground and have a fair idea of what's going on, was supporting him only 2 weeks ago. So I don't know how quickly things can turn, but the Everton owner sounded pretty impatient at their public meeting the week before last, so you'd suggest the clock is ticking if they don't start acting fast.
Bad news for fans of the magic of the FA Cup, because at the Montgomery Waters Meadow there's been a goal. Here's Shane Pennington.
It's Shrewsbury Town 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, and the Premier League side have come from 2 now to get right back into this game, and it's that man once again, Raul Jimenez. It came from the right hand side, Caballero with the ball in once again, and there was Jimenez at the back post to power a header beyond Steve Arnold. It's Shrewsbury 2, Wolves 2.
Yeah, 2-2 there in that one. They're into the 96th minute at the moment, and they're still playing in that game. The full-time whistle has gone in a few of the FA Cup fourth round games. It's finished Brighton 0, West Brom 0. Manchester City have beaten Burnley 5-0. Newcastle United have lost 2-0 at home to Watford, and Swansea City have beaten Gillingham 4-1. Earlier on in the day, Derby County beat Accrington Stanley away 1-0, and of course Manchester United are through after last night as well. In the Championship, it's full-time between Aston Villa and Ipswich Town. Villa have won 2-1. It's Blackburn Rovers 3, Hull City 0 into the dying moments in that one, while it's Norwich City 2, Sheffield United 2. Nottingham Forest are through and up, as we just mentioned, against Wigan Athletic, so a good day for Martin O'Neill, while Rotherham United are 2-1 down now at home to Leeds United, and it's Stoke City 0, Preston North End 2, and it's full-time everywhere in the Scottish Premiership. It's finished Hearts 2, St Johnstone 0, Dundee 0, Motherwell 1, Big win for Celtic, 3-0 winners against Hamilton, and a big result from a Celtic perspective as well, because it's finished Aberdeen 0, Kilmarnock 0, so that's kind of stirred things up at the top of the Scottish Premiership.
It's funny now, Live Score and Wolves have given that goal to Matt Doherty. That Wolves, the official Wolves account has gone for Doherty, but maybe it's one of these ones where it's a frantic sort of, it's a header in the area, so maybe there's a few bodies in there, but Matt Doherty's been credited with that in quite a few areas, so we'll see if that was.
Shane Keegan has just messaged me there that Wolves equaliser was actually by Matt Doherty, not Jimenez.
There you go. So. Good stuff. It's good stuff from an Irish perspective there. They are still playing 97 minutes on the clock there at the moment. We'll bring you the full-time score after the break. Dan and Johnny, thank you very much for joining me in studio this afternoon. We'll chat to you again soon. As I say, all the full-times, and it has just gone full-time as I speak at the Montgomery Waters Meadow. So it's finished Shrewsbury Town 2, Wolves 2. That'll go back to Molyneux for a replay. We'll take a quick break.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Boyle Sports. Now with same-day withdrawals to your Visa debit card.
Lunchtime Live with Ciara Kelly.
Since day one of the new year, I've been on a mission to get out and get moving with 100 days of walking. I'm delighted that so many people have been joining me too, right across the country.
It's really great to have a specific goal, 100 days. That's really doable.
I do about a 30-minute walk a day.
Yeah.
And I go around the back road.
Does it do something for you? Because I think it does something for me.
Yeah, well, no, it does. I mean, certainly it's great for the mental health.
And it's never too late for you to start your 100 days of walking. Join us by registering at newstalk.com/100 days of walking.
Lunchtime Live.